Chapter 1158. Tianyan was a grade 3, and no one believed that he could create another miracle. Once was enough of a miracle, and there wouldn't be a second time. Elder Xiao Tian glanced at Tianyan, then at Elder East Cloud, and said with a proud smile, "Come to think of it, his ability is at most a grade 3, and there's no way he can surpass it. With your standards, that's all you can do." This time he could finally heave a sigh of relief. It was very important for them to secure the champion's position. Although the top 3 would be rewarded, what could be more dazzling than the champion? No matter what, most of the elders were like Elder East Cloud, and had lost the confidence to get the first place. Which disciple of theirs could surpass the heavenly Dao grade armor? It could be said that no one could surpass it, especially if one wanted to succeed. They needed some luck. Luck played a huge part in Shu Bo's success in refining the Lord of Heaven. It was something that barely reached the rank of a grade 4 divine craftsman, and couldn't be considered as a true grade 4 divine craftsman. Because he could successfully refine it, he was already considered a grade 4 divine craftsman. Normally, Shu Bo's success rate for refining the Lord of Heaven would only be 20% to 30%, but he still succeeded. This was luck. Fortunately, he succeeded. If he failed, he would have to start all over again. Not only would he waste a lot of time, but he would also consume a lot of energy. However, it didn't matter if it was due to luck or not. As long as he succeeded, he would be the king of victory. Look, what is that human kid doing? It seems like he is continuously adding new materials. That's true. The materials that look more precious seem to be refining Heaven Dao grade materials. It can't be. Didn't he want to refine reincarnation grade materials? How did he raise it to Heaven Dao grade now? Isn't this too exaggerated? How can it be done like this? I know a little about this. As long as the original item has room for improvement, it can continue to be refined by adding materials. All of them were shocked by Tianyan's actions. He suddenly increased it, and it was with the abilities of a grade 3 divine craftsman. Wasn't he courting death? Haha, this fool actually suddenly improved. Does he want to overtake us? Elder Xiao Tian burst into laughter after he recovered from his shock. He felt that Tianyan was a joke. Elder Dongyan, are all your disciples so arrogant? A grade 3 divine creation master wants to refine a heavenly Dao grade artifact? The power of the explosion will be quite shocking. Elder East Cloud was similarly stunned by Tianyan's actions. He was at the heavenly Dao realm. It would be fine if he could overtake him, but if he failed, the consequences would be severe. The power of the explosion was astonishing. It was not something that ordinary people could withstand, but he didn't shout for Tianyan to stop. They couldn't interfere with their own disciples, let alone interfere with their disciples' judgment. He could only watch silently from the side. Can he still create a miracle? Elder East Cloud did not say anything. Instead, he was feeling doubtful. Tianyan's actions attracted the attention of all the elders, and all of them had strange expressions on their faces. Even those who didn't understand what Tianyan was refining were aware of what he was refining. Is he crazy? I remember that the materials he used should be reincarnation grade treasures. The difficulty isn't low. Isn't he going to refine a heavenly Dao grade treasure by force? That's right. Even if he wants to make a breakthrough, he should stop his previous refinement. There's a higher chance of success if he changes the armor type. He's refining a heavenly Dao grade treasure right away. That's too reckless. Those with some knowledge shook their heads, and felt that Tianyan was too unwise. The most suitable method was naturally to cancel what he was currently refining and choose something with a lower difficulty and a higher success rate. A heavenly Dao grade treasure would definitely score the highest points. But if he failed, it would be a waste of time and energy. Of course, Tianyan knew how difficult it was. He kept brandishing his hands and unleashed all his skills. It was undeniable that the heavenly Dao grade was extremely difficult. The success rate was basically fixed at 10%, which was frighteningly low. But if he wanted to get first place, he had to do it. Even with the demon fire, the success rate was still 10%. The main reason was that the difficulty was too high. If he didn't increase the grade, it would be difficult to achieve a high increase. The success rate is only 10%? Then let's increase it. Luck Aura Activate. Under the frenzied activation of the Luck Aura, the success rate suddenly increased to 50%. This was the limit of the Luck Aura. There was no way for him to break through it anymore. He would have to rely on his own abilities to make up for the remaining 50% success rate. But to be able to increase the success rate to 50% was already quite shocking. Etianyan wasn't going to end it so easily. His eyes flashed. Looks like I have no choice but to use the Burning Heaven Sacred Flame. He could only use the Burning Heaven Sacred Flame, because after using the Burning Heaven Sacred Flame, the success rate of forging would increase by 20. With the support of a decent sacred flame, the success rate would naturally be increased. He originally didn't intend to use it, but it seemed like he couldn't suppress it anymore. In order to get first place, he had to use it. But exposing it wasn't a problem. In any case, no one would be able to snatch such a treasure away. They would only value him more. Xiong. All of a sudden, a burning heaven's sacred flame appeared in the air. If the divine emperor Yu Qin was beside him, he would definitely be shocked. The burning heaven's sacred flame that she was so proud of was actually used by Yi Tianyin. Now, it wasn't just the divine emperor Yu Qin who was shocked. It could be said that all the elders present were shocked. Some of them even stood up directly, dumbfounded. Sacred flame, it's the sacred flame. This thought echoed in their minds. They didn't expect that Yi Tianyin would have a sacred flame. The rarity of a sacred flame was much higher than that of a demonic flame. But now, it had appeared in Yi Tianyin's body. Not only did he have a demonic flame, but he also had a sacred flame. This was simply heaven-defying. Yi Tianyin ignored their shocked gazes. He kept adding other materials in his hands, refining the impurities of these materials, and strengthening them layer by layer. Soon, divine light began to descend from the sky, which meant that he had already reached the final step. As long as he dragged the corresponding divine light over, the heavenly path treasure would be successful. One last step. Yi Tianyin's eyes flashed as he looked up at the falling heavenly law divine light. He raised his hand and pulled the heavenly law divine light into his heavenly law treasure. However, he felt like he was in a tug-of-war when he dragged the divine light down. It was extremely difficult. Every time he dragged the divine light, it would consume a lot of experience points. He felt like his astral powers were being drained. Chapter 1159. The effect of the heavenly Tao divine light was similar to that of the Lord of Heaven in Shubo. In fact, it depended on how much he could pull down, and whether it was more or less. The more heavenly Tao divine light he pulled down, the more difficult it would be. The good thing was that it would make the treasure more effective. If he pulled down too little, it would result in failure, which was the most serious problem. Every heavenly Tao treasure had its own standard, and the defensive equipment had to be fewer. Not only was it difficult to pull it down, but it was even more difficult to control it. Yi Tianyin felt that it was extremely strenuous. It felt like a tug-of-war, but the person pulling the rope wasn't an ordinary person, but a giant. The pulling force made him feel like he was dealing with an expert at the level of the Lord of Heaven. It was no wonder that some people felt that he wasn't a grade 4 divine creation master. Just the force used to pull the divine light needed to be very strong. The consumption was also extremely huge. After breaking through to the level of the Lord of Heaven, one's body could hold more star power and could last longer. Therefore, even a grade 4 divine creation master wouldn't be able to forge a heavenly Tao treasure if their cultivation level was too low. However, Yi Tianyin did it, and he felt that he would be fine. An Earth monarch actually dares to do this. It seems like dragging the heavenly Tao divine light is very strenuous. I wonder if he can persevere. Forging a heavenly Tao artifact requires even more divine light. Can that brat hold on? If he fails, it will be a joke. There isn't much time to begin with. If he fails, I wonder if he can make it in time? None of them were optimistic about Yi Tianyin. They originally thought that the grade wasn't high enough. Now that the grade seemed fine, the cultivation level couldn't keep up. Elder Xiao Tian and the others were startled, but they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Yi Tianyin's cultivation level was slightly lower, so the difficulty was slightly higher. It seemed like it was very easy to fail, and he wouldn't be able to successfully forge it. Fail he must fail. Elder Xiao Tian and the others didn't shout it out. If they shouted it out in front of so many people, wouldn't they be scolded to death by the other elders? Even the region lord of the Glaze region wouldn't be happy to curse others like this. Therefore, they could only pray and hope that Yi Tianyan would fail immediately. On the other hand, Elder Eastcloud was praying incessantly for Yi Tianyan to succeed. However, Yi Tianyan seemed to be having more and more trouble pulling the divine light down. It was very difficult for him to pull down a portion of the divine light, and it was very taxing on him. This godlight sure is taxing, and it takes up a lot of energy. It looks like the heavenly Tao treasure godlight is too hard to carry. Yi Tianyan narrowed his eyes, trying to think of a way to ease the burden. While he was stuck here, Elder Xiao Tian finally couldn't help but laugh. Sometimes being too greedy will result in failure. His standard was not bad, but his cultivation was too weak. If he had cultivated for a while longer before participating, he might have been able to succeed. Elder Dongyan, this is truly a pity. Elder Xiao Tian's words had a hidden meaning. It sounded like he was feeling sorry, but it was actually a form of mockery. With his personality, saying such words was like a weasel paying respects to a chicken. How could it be sincere? Shut your mouth. He hasn't even failed yet. Elder Dongyan shouted angrily at him. Now that Yi Tianyan hadn't failed yet, Elder Dongyan was making sarcastic remarks. How could Elder Dongyan not be angry? It's already like this, and you're still stubbornly holding on. Elder Xiao Tian's face was full of disdain. I won't say anything about you supporting your own disciple, but it looks like you've already succeeded, and you're still stubbornly holding on. Elder Xiao Tian, have you forgotten what you said before? What's the result after that? Elder Dongyan sneered. This. Elder Xiao Tian's face darkened. That was before. It looks like it'll be very difficult to succeed now. If he can still succeed, I'll eat this furnace. Everyone turned to look at him in shock. He actually dared to say something like that. Was he really not afraid of being slapped in the face? He spoke so confidently, and a large part of it was because he could see that Yi Tianyan was having a hard time. If this continued, there was no way he would succeed. Instead, he would collapse. Ha! Elder Xiao Tian, I'm really looking forward to you eating this furnace. The person who answered him was actually Yi Tianyan, who was standing to the side. Even Yi Tianyan had heard their bet, so he turned to look at him. Immediately, Yi Tianyan revolved the power within his body. This was the power of a heavenly venerate bestowed upon him by the vast heavenly venerate. This was an existence that could suppress the power of the heavenly Tao. After he revolved his power, he forcefully dragged the heavenly Tao divine light down. As he dragged, a large portion of the heavenly Tao divine light was easily pulled out and stuffed into his heavenly Tao treasure. This feeling was like his opponent had withered, causing his opponent to loosen his grip and be unable to continue dragging Yi Tianyan. Yi Tianyan pulled the heavenly Tao divine light down in a relaxed manner, as if he were drinking water. As expected of the power of a heavenly venerate, it has a special effect when it comes to suppressing the power of the heavenly Tao. Yi Tianyan was pleasantly surprised. It seemed that the power bestowed upon him by the vast heavenly venerate was still very useful, especially when it came to refining weapons. It had a very shocking effect. This scene caused everyone's eyes to widen. They were dumbfounded by Yi Tianyan's actions. It was clearly difficult to pull the heavenly Tao divine light down previously, but in the blink of an eye, he could easily pull it down. It was as if he had become a giant that could drag anything down. This is impossible. Elder Xiao Tian and the others were stunned. They had just said this, and Yi Tianyan had immediately slapped them in the face. Could it be that he had been pretending before? But regardless of whether it was an act or not, he had already said it. Wouldn't he really have to swallow this furnace? Interesting. As expected of someone who has completed the heavenly venerate path, he even knows how to use the power of a heavenly venerate. The light blue eyes of the region master flashed with a strange light. She was quite appreciative of Yi Tianyan's actions. Although the region master was not a heavenly venerate, she was infinitely close to it. She could feel the energy fluctuations within. Therefore, when Yi Tianyan used it, she immediately sensed it. Yes, no wonder he dared to try it. It turns out that he has the power of a heavenly venerate. Elder Go Huang slapped his thigh, his eyes full of surprise. This was Yi Tianyan's trump card. Not only did he have the sacred flame of the burning heavens, but he also had the power of a heavenly venerate. With these two great abilities, how could he not be able to refine it? Yi Tianyan fiercely pulled down a large piece of heavenly Tao divine light, before quickly cutting it off. He did not dare to continue to let the heavenly Tao divine light fall. If he continued to pull it down, it would not be a power that he could control. Although he had the power of a heavenly venerate, the power of a heavenly venerate was not omnipotent. In particular, if he pulled too much, the result would be a terrible heavenly tribulation. Such a heaven-defying treasure would naturally be dissatisfied with it, and it would want to completely suppress it. In his current situation, it was not easy to deal with this heavenly tribulation. In particular, he did not want to expose his combat strength in front of so many people. Chapter 1160. After Yi Tianyan stopped dragging the heavenly divine light, he began to fuse it. The heavenly treasure inside began to fuse with the heavenly divine light bit by bit. There seemed to be no rejection, and everything went smoothly. Although the consumption was shocking, the planet in his body was huge, and the amount of astral power it could contain far exceeded that of powerhouses of the same cultivation level. He was now a 9 refined Earth Lord, but the energy in his body was comparable to that of the Lord of Heaven. This was the capital of his arrogance. Therefore, refining this heavenly treasure was not a problem at all. There were difficulties, but everything was within his control. Especially with the protection of the lucky aura, it greatly increased his success rate in refining the pills. However, this was the most crucial moment. Whether he could completely fuse with the heavenly divine light was also an extremely difficult task. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. As for the performance of the other contestants, they had long been ignored by the audience. They felt that everything else was just a foil. As long as Yi Tianyan succeeded, even Shu Bo and the Lord of Heaven would be a foil. For a heavenly Tao treasure to be refined by a human at that, it was definitely an incredible feat. No one would be willing to believe anything that was said. Fail, you must fail. Elder Xiao Tian was about to go crazy. If he succeeded in the last step, he would really go crazy. However, no matter how he shouted and prayed in his heart, he could not stop Yi Tianyan from succeeding. Finally, with his strong foundation, he successfully forged a heavenly Tao-grade treasure. Buzz. Accompanied by a pleasant sound, a bracelet flew out of the furnace and landed steadily in his hand. The bracelet was engraved with spots of starlight, as if there were countless stars on it. It looked very beautiful, especially with the power of the heavenly Tao. A faint halo covered the bracelet, forming circles and circles of ripples. The refining is done. Elders, please evaluate. Yi Tianyan raised the bracelet in his hand high, his face full of excitement and excitement. He finally refined it, and he could prove his ability in front of everyone. To prove that the human race also had infinite possibilities, and not the lowest existence. As soon as these words were spoken, they fiercely entered their ears like thunder. Elder Xiao Tian was even more stunned. He stared blankly at the bracelet in Yi Tianyan's hand, feeling that it was inconceivable. In the end, Yi Tianyan succeeded. It was an inconceivable treasure, an existence that would be recorded in the annals of history. Yi Tianyan had broken a new record. His cultivation had not reached the level of the Lord of Heaven, but he was able to refine a heavenly axiom-level treasure. This was enough to show disdain for all the geniuses in the palace of God's history. Especially since he had successfully refined it with the identity of a human. Everyone was dumbfounded. Good. Elder Dong Yin laughed heartily. He was so excited that he was about to go crazy. The other elders didn't know what to say. Since the refinement was successful, what else could they say? Not bad, it has been successfully refined. Glaze Region Lord smiled faintly and said, "Very talented human, the most talented human I've ever seen in my life. Looks like the final champion is going to be him." That's right, it was indeed him. Elder Go Huang had a complicated look in his eyes. I didn't expect a disciple from a first-grade celestial realm to be so dazzling. Fortunately, This disciple was obtained by us. If he had been obtained by another celestial realm, it would have been our loss. Yes, and it would have been a great loss. Given enough time, he will definitely become a great person in the future. It's not impossible for him to break through to the heavenly venerable rank. Glaze Region Lord's beautiful face revealed a rare happy smile. Looks like we won't be able to poach him. Elder Wu Yuan looked at the dazzling bracelet and instantly felt bitter in his heart. To be able to refine a heavenly axiom-level treasure at such a cultivation level meant that Etienne's achievements in forging were even higher. There was no need to evaluate the scores. Etienne was definitely going to be the champion, unless someone could surpass him. But from the looks of it, no one could surpass him. Everyone was reduced to a supporting role. Lord of Heaven Shubo's face paled. He originally thought that he would be able to obtain first place, but now, he was ruthlessly pressed to the ground by Etienne, and even rubbed against him several times. He couldn't even get up. What arrogance! What genius! Everything was ruthlessly smashed to smithereens. Elder Xiao Tian, can you eat this furnace now? Luckily, my disciple is a little more hardworking. Otherwise, I really wouldn't be able to see you eat this furnace. Elder Dongyin sneered. This was the result of his cheap mouth. Couldn't he have just stood there obediently? Why did he have to say such words? Elder Xiaotian was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. It was bad enough that the first place was snatched away, but now, he still had to eat the furnace in front of so many people. This was simply inhumane. Good. I'll eat it. Elder Xiaotian roared and transformed into a huge fire snake. He opened his mouth and swallowed one of the furnaces. Then he reverted to his original form and swallowed the furnace just like that. This scene caused everyone to be dumbfounded. He really swallowed it. However, swallowing a furnace was not a problem for him at all. He was originally from the ancient giant snake clan, and could transform into a huge snake demon. Swallowing a furnace was not a problem at all. If he couldn't transform, that would be really awkward. How could he swallow such a huge furnace? Crush the furnace into powder, and swallow it bit by bit? When Etienne saw this, he almost spat it out. This was simply cheating. He thought that it would be more difficult, but who knew that it would be so easy? To Elder Xiaotian, it was not difficult at all. After eating it, Elder Dongyin was speechless. He could only silently agree that Elder Xiaotian had fulfilled his promise. Are you satisfied? Elder Xiaotian glared at him fiercely. Yes. Elder Dongyin looked at him and smiled faintly. At least Elder Xiaotian is a man of his word. This is my loss. Elder Xiaotian coldly snorted and didn't say anything else. Anyway, they had no way of winning now. Very quickly, after they finished, the others also finished. The highest grade was undoubtedly a high-grade reincarnation level treasure. Similarly, there were people who had refined it. However, compared to the heavenly path refined by Etienne and Shubo Lord of Heaven, it was already overshadowed. It could not be compared at all. Fiery Lotus Lord of Heaven and Imperial Dragon Lord of Heaven had also performed to their highest level. They charged into the top 5 in one go. However, they still did not enter the top 3. Being able to enter the top 5 was already a good result. I will now announce the results. The top 3 are Earth Monarch Tianyan, Shubo Lord of Heaven, and Wood Lord of Heaven. You can receive personal guidance from me. You can also make a request. You can make a request now or wait until the end of the competition, and come to the Region Lord Shrine. Region Lord Colored Glaze smiled faintly. As for the other participants, your performance was also very outstanding. You will also be given a reward. Chapter 1161. The disciples who participated in the great competition of the God Creation Palace would receive a reward. The problem was the difference in rank. Some received average rewards, while others received decent ones. Etienne was one of them. Etienne did not make this request in front of the crowd. After all, it would only make people think more if he said it out. Therefore, it was better to just tell Luli Domain Lord. There was no need to say it in front of so many people. After the competition ended, the audience dispersed. However, they all remembered one participant, and that was Etienne. A human cultivator had successfully won the championship, suppressing all the outstanding talents. Ding. Successfully completed the special quest, take first place in the God Creation Palace. Reward: 1x Forging Godstone, 100 million Crazy Points, 10 million Mastery. At the same time, you will receive the title Strongest Newcomer King of the God Creation Palace. Strongest Newcomer King of the God Creation Palace. In the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm, the success rate of forging will be increased by 10%. Commander points will be increased by 2,000 points. This title was quite good. It could increase the success rate of forging. However, it was limited to the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm. After leaving, it would not have any effect. The rewards of these quests are quite good. Tianyan is very satisfied with this. It's good to come to these quests occasionally, and complete them on the way. At this time he returned with Elder Dong Yin. Everyone was cheering. Tianyan actually took first place. Previously, they did not have much confidence in Tianyan. They were completely holding on to the hope that Tianyan would not be at the bottom. Who knew that Tianyan would rush to first place in one go? Even their senior brother was defeated. What followed was a collective celebration. They once again went to the restaurant to drink and celebrate Tianyan winning first place. They also celebrated that he had won glory for them. They had always been at the bottom. Now they could finally hold their heads up high. Even without Tianyan's help, Fire Lotus Lord of Heaven and Imperial Dragon Lord of Heaven would have won glory for them. Although he couldn't get into the top 3, he could at least get into the top 5. This was a pretty good result, and no one would look down on him anymore. After the celebration, Tianyan went directly to the Domain Lord Shrine to look for Glazed Domain Lord. What he wanted to do the most right now was to condense the water core as soon as possible, and put everything else aside for the time being. Under his guidance, the guards of the Divine Hall of the Domain Chief brought him to the place where the Azure Domain Chief was. As soon as he entered, he saw the Lord of Heaven walk out from inside. When the two of them looked at each other, Shubo Lord of Heaven was silent for a while before he said, "Next time, I won't lose." "I hope so." Tianyan just smiled faintly and didn't say anything more to him. Would there be a next time? He did not have much interest in these small squabbles. Who knew where he would go when his cultivation level rose? Why would he still stay in the Palace of Gods and compete with them in weapon forging? If it wasn't for the fact that he could enter the water core to cultivate here, he really couldn't be bothered with the competition in the Palace of Gods. After entering, what came into view was a world of water, and the surroundings were filled with the power of the mercury. In between breaths, he felt as though he was sucking in a thick ocean, which made him feel a chill down his spine. He had just entered, and he could already feel an incomparably huge water core beneath his feet. The thick power of the mercury surged up from beneath his feet, which was of great help to the cultivation of powerhouses with the water attribute physique. Such an amazing place was owned by the Glazed Domain Chief, and she stayed here every day to cultivate. Naturally, her cultivation level wouldn't be low. Lord Glazed Domain Chief. Tianyan walked in and saw her leaning lazily on the chair. You're here." Only then did the Glazed Domain Chief slowly sit up. When she raised her hand, everything seemed so natural. Even the surrounding power of the mercury started to fluctuate slowly, rippling out in circles. "Lord Glazed Domain Chief, I'm here this time to ask for a favor." Tianyan immediately explained the purpose of his visit. "Say it." "I've promised before. As long as it's within my acceptable range, I'll do it for you," the Glazed Domain Chief said. "But in terms of guidance, I don't think I need to give too much guidance. You've completed the way of the Heavenly Lord. I'm sure the guidance of the Heavenly Lord will be more useful than mine." "No, Lord Glazed Domain Chief, you can't say that. The guidance of the way of the Heavenly Lord is limited, especially since Lord Glazed Domain Chief has a special physique. If the attributes are the same, it would undoubtedly be better to receive guidance from Lord Glazed Domain Chief." Tianyan smiled faintly. "Moreover, in the way of the Heavenly Lord, I'm just a disciple in name, and not an official disciple. I won't be able to receive any guidance. Therefore, if there's anything I don't understand, I hope that Lord Glazed Domain Chief can give me some guidance." He was speaking the truth. The vast Heavenly Lord really didn't give them any guidance. He only gave them martial arts and didn't say anything else. If he wanted to receive complete guidance, he had to at least break through to the Heavenly Lord level. That was something that would take an indefinite amount of time. The Glazed Domain Chief was already a half-step Heavenly Lord. If she didn't have the qualifications to give him guidance, then who would? You've put it nicely. Let's hear what your request is first. The Glazed Domain Chief smiled faintly. I want to cultivate in the water core for a period of time. I wonder if Lord Glazed Domain Chief is willing? Etienne said immediately. Boom. At this time, a strong wave of air came crashing down from all directions, giving Etienne a huge impact. There was no doubt that his request had touched the heart of the Glazed Domain Chief. Do you know what you're saying? The Glazed Domain Chief's aura didn't dissipate. Instead, she looked at him coldly. I know what I'm saying. The water core is extremely strict. A little carelessness will affect Lord Glazed Domain Chief's cultivation. It's closely related to breaking through to the Heavenly Lord level. Therefore, it's not that I can't go in casually, lest I affect Lord Glazed Domain Chief. Etienne said in a deep voice. I definitely won't do anything. I just want to cultivate in the water core for a period of time to complete the final breakthrough. Complete the final breakthrough? The Glazed Domain Chief sized him up and said. You have the sacred flame, which is an existence that counters our water attribute. Why would you need to use the water core? This was the most important thing for her now. Everything that Etienne said was basically correct. She wasn't too vigilant when others went in. However, Etienne had the burning heaven sacred flame. If she wasn't careful, it would indeed affect her cultivation. It's a long story, but I do need the water core to cultivate. I hope that Lord Glazed Domain Chief can fulfill my request. Etienne didn't say too much. If he explained that he was here to break through to the 10th refinement Earth Monarch, would she believe him? The Glazed Domain Chief narrowed her eyes and sized him up. After a moment she said slowly, All right, I promise you. Chapter 1162. Hearing that Colored Glaze Region Lord had agreed to his request, Etienne heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to say something, Colored Glaze Region Lord smirked. Although I said I can, you still have to agree to one condition. Colored Glaze Region Lord squinted her eyes and smiled. Etienne's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly had a bad premonition. This, Colored Glaze Region Lord. Didn't you say that you could agree to this request? Etienne frowned. That's true, but your request has already exceeded a normal request. Even if you get first place in the God Creation Palace, it's still a little too difficult. Colored Glaze Region Lord smiled faintly. Usually, only I want to enter the water core to cultivate. Even if Elder Go Huang and the rest want to cultivate, they need my approval. It's not a place where anyone can cultivate just because they want to. To put it bluntly, the request was too much. It was no longer something that could be obtained by getting first place. All right then. What condition do I have to agree to? Etienne looked at her and asked. This condition is relatively simple. Don't join the third-grade God domain. Just stay here. Colored Glaze Region Lord said in a low voice. Of course, it's not that you can't join in the future. At least not now. Even if someone tries to recruit you, don't choose to join. Correspondingly, I guarantee that the Heavenly Spring God domain will provide you with the best resources. It will allow you to cultivate to the God Emperor level without any pressure. You will even have a chance to break through to the Heavenly Venerable level. At least until you are below the Heavenly Venerable level, you won't have to worry about resources. Colored Glaze Region Lord's expression was solemn. It was obvious that this was a very serious matter. Etienne's general situation was related to the God Domain War. Colored Glaze Region Lord didn't want him to join the God Domain War. If he joined now, he would only be cannon fodder. Most importantly, if he stayed in the Heavenly Spring God domain, he would be able to retain some strength and become a pillar in the future. Why? Etienne had a wrong guess, but he still asked to see how Colored Glaze Region Lord would explain. The Divine Territory isn't peaceful right now. Previously, Elder Go Huang told me that there are divine beasts from the Divine Territory coming to snatch geniuses. This is actually the actions of a Grade 3 God realm. It's to attract more geniuses over to become their slaves and cannon fodder. Very soon, the Divine Domain War will begin. This will be an extremely cruel battle. It's all for the sake of climbing to a higher position. Domain Lord Glaze shook her head and said, with your ability, there will definitely be a grade 3 god realm that will try to recruit you. At that time, they will also do their best to nurture you. At that time, you will be able to contribute to them. If your cultivation is strong enough, you might be able to survive. But if you don't have enough time, you might just become one of the cannon fodder. If we stay in the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm, it won't be too serious even if we are affected. At the very least, we elders will choose to go into battle, not you. The explanation of the Glazed Region Lord made Tianyun feel somewhat comfortable. To put it bluntly, even if the sky were to collapse, these experts would be the ones to stop it. As for the Grade 3 God Realms, they had to fight, unless they didn't want to break through to the Grade 4 God Realm. Hence, at least those who were still alive and had some fighting strength would not be sent out to fight. Although the Glazed Region Lord wanted to preserve some of the strength of the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm, it was also for their own good. I understand the gist of it, but I'm a little interested in this kind of Divine Domain War. Tianyun smiled faintly and said, but since Lord Glazed Region Lord has said so, I'll agree not to join the Grade 3 God Realm. But if it really does affect this place, I hope that Lord Glazed Region Lord will bring me to participate in the war. Is this possible? Tianyun just wanted to kill once to increase his cultivation. When he broke through to the 10th Refinement Earth Monarch realm, the amount of experience he needed would definitely be huge. For this reason, he needed this war, and the Divine Domain War was undoubtedly the best choice. It was just that he didn't know when it would start. Hence, there was no harm in agreeing to it. When the time came, who would know if he sneaked out and entered the Divine Domain War? As long as you have enough strength, you'll have to participate even if you don't want to. The Glazed Region Lord smiled and said, but I don't think it will be your turn to fight. In that case, you've agreed to it. Swear an oath, and I'll let you go to the Water Core to cultivate. No problem, I swear that I won't join any third-grade God Domain before the Battle of God Domain. Tianyun said as he started to make a vow. Soon, the vow mark was branded in the sky, indicating that the vow was made. To him, the original intention of joining a Grade 3 God Realm was to have good resources, and to gain some experience by participating in the Divine Domain War. Now that the Glazed Region Lord had said that she could provide him with the corresponding resources, why not stay here? He liked the atmosphere of the God Creation Palace, so he could stay here for the time being. Very well, then I'll bring you to the Water Core now. Although the Water Core doesn't care about your heaven-burning sacred fire, don't casually ignite these flames, the Glazed Region Lord reminded him. No problem. Immediately after, the Glazed Region Lord brought him to the Water Core. Through the teleportation array, he could easily teleport to the area where the Water Core was located. As soon as he teleported down, he immediately felt an even denser mercury force rushing toward him. This feeling was similar to meeting a life core, just that the attributes were different. Soon, under the guidance of the Glazed Region Lord, they arrived at a huge door. With a light push, the door slowly opened. Just as a small opening was opened, she walked in and gestured for Tianyun to follow her. After Tianyun entered, he saw the huge water core. Compared to the life core he saw in the Sacred Palace of Life, it was many times larger. The two could not be compared. After entering, he immediately felt as if he had entered a world of water. Countless mercury forces filled him. This is the Water Core. You stay here and cultivate. I'll go out and busy myself with some matters. Once I'm done, I will also come in to cultivate. In the meantime, you can stay here and cultivate. After the Glazed Region Lord finished her instructions, she turned around and left without saying anything else. I hope I can succeed this time. Tianyun took a deep breath, sat down beside the Water Core, and began to cultivate. He had spent so much effort to break through to the 10th Refining Earth Lord level. If he still could not succeed, he could only look for other ways. Chapter 1163. There was no difficulty in condensing a water core. All he needed to do was to continuously absorb it. In fact, it was a transformation process. He could not directly move the huge water core in front of him, but he could absorb it and transform it into his own energy. This was like absorbing the life core before. If it were not for the fact that he could not have two cores at the same time, he would have successfully condensed it. For him, this was not a big problem. He could easily condense it with just a little more time. Soon, under his powerful control, the water core quickly solidified and expanded bit by bit. At the same time, it began to condense into another planet. This speed was not fast or slow. Everything was repeating the previous work, gathering bit by bit. Soon a small planet was formed and rapidly expanded. Everything was slow and under his control. As time passed, more than a month passed in the blink of an eye. In his body, an even bigger water planet had already condensed. The huge water planet looked like a huge crystal ball. It was very beautiful. However, compared to the life planet next to it, which was Jupiter, it was much smaller. They were not on the same level at all. This meant that he needed to condense more water cores, and it would take a lot of time. This was not a problem for him. Under his crazy absorption, the water core began to fluctuate slightly, and the energy was quickly extracted by him. In the blink of an eye, another month passed. Glazed Region Lord still had not returned. He did not know what she was busy with, but she still had not returned. Tianyan could not be bothered. In any case, he could just let him absorb the water core. As the months passed, the water planet in Tianyan's body became bigger and bigger. He did not know how much energy he had absorbed from the water core. If it was converted into experience, who knew how many billions of experience points it would be? However, he needed to fulfill the conditions for a breakthrough, so he had to first condense the water planet. Finally, the size of the water planet condensed was almost as big as the Jupiter planet next to it. Waves of the water planet's energy began to wrap around the Jupiter planet, nourishing it. This was obviously a symbiotic level. It constantly nourished the Jupiter planet, causing the trees on it to grow rapidly. They were more luxuriant than before. It was as if they were being nourished by rain, making them more vigorous and filled with more life force. This feeling makes Tianyan feel comfortable. It is obvious that he is on the right path, not the wrong one. Previously, when he condensed the other life core, there were signs of collapse. That kind of situation did not occur here. Instead, it seemed to be very stable and there were no problems at all. That's it. There doesn't seem to be any problem. Tianyan was completely immersed in the fusion, allowing the two planets to completely connect with each other, forming a state of orbiting each other. He didn't have this kind of experience, but he had a hunch that the two must be completely fused to form a perfect form. Time passed quickly, but the region mistress colored glaze still hadn't returned. If she had returned, she would have definitely seen the two types of energy radiating from Tianyan's body. One was the life force, and the other was the power of water. The two energies blended together in perfect harmony, without the slightest sense of conflict. After he had completely stabilized, Tianyan slowly opened his eyes. His eyes emitted two different kinds of light, looking very beautiful. I finally succeeded. Tianyan took a deep breath and felt the two huge planets orbiting in his body. The two were inseparable, and the key was that they complemented each other. The water planet constantly nourished the energy, making the Jupiter planet more vigorous. Following that, the Jupiter planet returned the life force to nourish the water planet, forming a symbiotic effect. This was the most ideal state at present. In fact, he felt that it could be even more perfect. No matter what, he had reached the target and had two planets. No one would believe that someone could actually possess the power of two planets if they were to tell others about this. Especially when the two formed a symbiotic state. This way they could generate energy for each other, allowing Tianyan to last longer. His energy would increase by a lot, allowing him to exhaust his opponent to death even without taking elixirs when fighting. The upgrade standard has been completed. Now, I just have to wait to break through to the Lord of Heaven. Tianyan recalled the scene in the heaven-pilfering divine land that he had dreamt of. It was very likely that when he broke through to the Lord of Heaven, he would have to endure such a terrifying tribulation. Based on his current situation, he didn't feel that he was fully prepared. He still needed the support of other forces. Of course, he still needed to break through to the 10th refining Earth Lord. And then he could break through to the Lord of Heaven. He hoped that when he broke through to the 10th refining Earth Lord, he would not encounter that abnormal tribulation. Forget it. I will continue to absorb it, and continue to strengthen myself. Etienne's eyes lit up. He sat down and continued to absorb the energy of the water core. This energy was constantly turned into his own experience, and it was no longer condensing the water planet. He needed to accumulate experience now, which could be used to train his subordinates and pets. For example, he now has a star overlord, but he didn't dare to release it now, but its cultivation is also low. If he can strengthen it, its power will be amazing. Anyway, he can't go out now, so he will absorb the experience first. Under his continuous absorption, the energy of the water core was quickly extracted, but it felt like it was endless. There was no sign of it being drained. If he could get this one, it would be equivalent to getting a huge treasure trove of experience. It's just that it takes too long to absorb. It's safe, but it takes a lot of time. If he can kill the enemy and go back and forth, it will definitely increase a lot of experience. The key is that crazy point. These important values can improve his ability. He didn't know how long he absorbed, but finally the door slowly opened, and Lioli Realm Master walked in from the outside, looking exhausted. She came to his side and looked at him. It seems that your cultivation is good. I will take a rest first. She didn't wait for Etienne to answer, and directly sat down to recover. The next moment, it turned into a black hole, and the suction force is dozens of times stronger than Etienne's, and the effect is even 100 times stronger. This kind of super suction force shocked Etienne. It seems that this is the power of a half-step heavenly master. Absorbing it is like a sea cow drinking water. And in a blink of an eye, a large area is drained. No wonder Lioli Realm Master didn't let others come in. Just her absorption alone has consumed a lot of energy. How can she let others come in to absorb? Chapter 1164. Etienne stayed at the side and followed along to absorb, waiting for Region Lord Glaze to wake up. It seemed like she had just experienced a great battle. Otherwise she wouldn't have absorbed so much water core energy to recover herself. After about half a month, Region Lord Glaze's condition finally improved, and it seemed to be much better than before. She then slowly opened her eyes and heaved a sigh of relief. As soon as she woke up, Etienne came over and asked, "Region Lord Glaze, what exactly happened?" Region Lord Glaze returned so late, and with so much exhaustion. It definitely wasn't just a simple meeting. She must have participated in some great battle. That is a strange place, and you don't have the qualifications to go there for the time being. Wait until your cultivation breaks through to the Lord of Heaven. Then you will barely have the qualifications to go there. Region Lord Glaze didn't say much and looked at him and said, "You are now a 9 refinements Earth Monarch. If you take another step, you will become a Lord of Heaven, and you will be much stronger than an ordinary Lord of Heaven. Only then will you have some qualifications. If it was an ordinary Lord of Heaven, you wouldn't have the qualifications at all. Wait until you break through to the Lord of Heaven, then come and find me. Of course, even if you break through to the Lord of Heaven, I can't bring you there immediately. It will have to wait for a period of time." Etienne understood Region Lord Glaze. She had consumed an astonishing amount of energy, and although he didn't know where she was going, it definitely wasn't simple. When the time came, Region Lord Glaze would bring him there, and it would definitely be a shocking experience. Then Region Lord Glaze, disciple will go back first, and come back after I break through to the Lord of Heaven, Etienne said. Region Lord Glaze nodded and said, "It is more difficult for 9 refinements Earth Monarch to break through to the Lord of Heaven. It is best to choose a quiet and safe place. Let Elder Eastcloud protect you. That way, things will go a little smoother." Etienne nodded, and didn't say that he was going to break through to the 10 refinements Earth Monarch. After saying goodbye, he turned around and left. Glaze Region Master didn't stop him. She wouldn't protect Etienne. At least Etienne didn't have the qualifications to do so. After Etienne left, he immediately used the teleportation godstone, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In the next moment he appeared within the 3 dimensions. The place he wanted to undergo his tribulation was none other than outside the 3 realms. He wanted to choose to transcend the tribulation here. If he transcended the tribulation in the divine realm, the impact would be greater. He did not want others to know that he was breaking through to the 10 refinements Earth Monarch. If it was seen by others, it would definitely shock the entire God realm. It was best for him to choose to keep a low profile, and not let others know that he could break through to the 10th refinement of the Earth Monarch. Just think about it, a 10th refinement Earth Monarch had never appeared before. If it was known that he was able to break through to the 10th refinement Earth Monarch realm, he would definitely be captured and interrogated about how he broke through. The method seemed simple, but it required a lot of cooperation. Most importantly, not everyone could do it. People have their own selfish motives. He didn't want to share this secret with just anyone. When the Grade 3 God Realm powerhouses found out, the consequences would be self-evident. They would definitely be captured and interrogated. I'm finally back. When Etianyan felt this familiar aura, he felt that this place was the warmest. There was no place more warm than this place. After he returned, he immediately explored the situation of the 3 realms. After a quick scan, he found that the situation here was thriving. There were already more than a dozen people who had broken through to the God King realm, which was the Star Lord realm. There were even more people who were at the Saint King realm. There was no problem. The Heavenly Cloud Divine Kingdom was still in charge of the entire 3 realms. No one dared to disobey the orders of the Heavenly Cloud Divine Kingdom. Therefore, everything was very peaceful. There were people everywhere going to the outer planets to explore and search for various resources. Compared to being trapped in the 3 realms, it was much better. At least this way, they would be able to alleviate the shortage of resources. It seems that everything is well managed. Shui Yun and the others have done a good job. Etianyan was very satisfied with the management. It was the right choice to let them manage the 3 realms. When he carefully observed the situation around him, he soon saw a familiar figure. In the blink of an eye, she had grown into a slender and elegant girl. She was none other than his daughter, Isishue. Now she had grown up and become a slender and elegant girl. He didn't leave this place for a long time, but the time difference between Fan Yu and the God Realm was different. She stayed in the God Realm for 2 years, but she had spent more than 10 years here. Naturally, she had become a slender and elegant girl. Now, she had a large group of pursuers behind her. They followed her wherever she went. Isishue was his daughter, the daughter of the 3 realms god. Who didn't want to pursue her? Once he became her son-in-law, he would definitely have a meteoric rise. Therefore, whether they liked or disliked her, they would crazily pursue her, hoping to achieve meteoric rise. Miss Sishue, I know a good place outside. Do you want to go there with me? What's so fun about training? I know a beautiful place, I can take you there. Miss Sishue, I have a piece of jade here. It's very beautiful. I'm sure you'll like it. These pursuers did everything they could to gain Isishue's favor. But no matter what they did, Isishue's face was cold, and she completely ignored them. I've already said, these tricks are useless to me. I'm tired of seeing them. If you want to pursue me, you'll have to be stronger than my father first. Isishue snorted coldly and rejected them. All of them showed a look of despair. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Surpassing the 3 realms god? That was a joke. How could they surpass such a powerful existence? Not to mention surpassing Etianyan, just Isishue alone could crush them. Now Isishue was not even 18 years old, and she had already broken through to the God King stage. She could crush all existences. Even the elders were ashamed of this cultivation. They couldn't be compared to her. These pursuers were just marrying into Isishue's family. Their cultivation was at most around the Saint King stage, and they were much older than Isishue. Therefore, not to mention surpassing Etianyan, it was already very good if they could surpass Isishue. Miss Sishue, this is too difficult. Some of them felt helpless. If you don't even have this much confidence, how can you talk about pursuing me? Isishue snorted coldly and ignored them. Xiaoshui, your requirements are really high. Tianyan suddenly appeared beside her and smiled at Isishue. Isishue heard this voice and turned her head in disbelief. After seeing Tianyan's face clearly, she did not hesitate and rushed towards him. Chapter 1165. Isishue threw herself into his arms, causing the surrounding suitors to be filled with jealousy. Some of them even glared at him with red eyes. What kind of ability did he have to make Isishue throw herself into his arms? Who are you? Immediately, a suitor stood out and glared at Tianyan. That's right. Who are you? Which faction are you from? You look so weak. How dare you approach Miss Isishue? All of them surrounded Isishue with red eyes. It would have been fine if none of them were pursuing success, but they didn't expect someone to suddenly appear and win Isishue's heart. This made them both shocked and angry. After pursuing her for so many years, a nameless brat had easily won her heart. How could they not be angry? Because Isishue looks similar to Shuiyun. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't be able to tell that the two were father and daughter. In addition, Tianyan had always restrained his aura. Normally, he wouldn't release his aura when he had nothing to do. Therefore, in the divine realm, those with similar cultivation would think that he was weaker. Only those with much higher cultivation than Tianyan would know how high his cultivation was. Isishue covered her mouth and laughed. She hugged Tianyan's shoulder and said to them, "This is my man. None of you can compare to him. If you want to pursue me, you have to surpass him first." Tianyan shrugged helplessly. He was indeed his daughter's first man, but he was only at the level of a father. This kind of joke was used to scare one's husband, but it was reflected in him. Surpass him. Everyone stared at Tianyan with red eyes. One by one they stood out and said sternly, "I want to duel with you." "That's right. I want to duel with you too. Let's see who's stronger. Our faction is ranked in the top 5 in the 3 realms. Which faction are you from? Quickly tell us your name." None of them could guess Tianyan's identity, so they hooted at the side. Isishue, who was at the side, was holding her stomach. She felt that it was very funny. These people were all idiots. They couldn't even see through her father's identity. "My power." Tianyan smiled faintly. "The 3 realms are under my control. What kind of power do you think I am?" "Bullshit. The 3 realms is under the control of the Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor. You are insulting the Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor. This is unacceptable." "That's right. You can take Miss Isishue away, but you can't insult the Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor. I will kill you." "How dare you insult my idol? You bastard, I'm going to kill you." Each and every one of them was thoroughly enraged. They drew their swords and were ready to cut Tianyan into pieces. Who would have thought that his prestige would be so high that no one would allow others to insult him? In reality, his prestige was indeed the highest in the 3 dimensions, and he had always been worshipped as a god. The god in charge of everything was naturally worshipped by the younger generation. It could be said that they had reached a fanatical level. Wait, he seems to be very similar to the statue standing in the imperial capital. One of the pursuers suddenly thought of something, and his body suddenly stiffened. He looked at Tianyan in disbelief, and shouted with trembling fingers, "Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor?" After saying that, his legs went soft, and he knelt on the ground. The other pursuers who were full of anger also remembered something, and they also knelt on the ground. Heavenly Cloud's Great Emperor? When they looked carefully, they really remembered that it was exactly the same as the statue. After calming down and thinking about it, how could Isishue casually fall in love with other men? Before, she said that the standard was the same level as Tianyan. This kind of requirement was really difficult to meet. It was not impossible for his children to have their father as their goal. Therefore, thinking about it carefully, the only person who could make Isishue throw herself into his arms was her father, right? To be precise, it should be a coquettish behavior that they haven't seen for many years. Hee, it's funny you finally recognized me, a group of fools. Before, you said that you admired my father, but who was the one who scolded people just now? Isishue covered her mouth and chuckled. She found it very funny. They were embarrassed and some directly kowtowed, begging for Tianyan's forgiveness. Okay, You don't have to blame the ignorant, you didn't mean it. Tianyan waved his hand and said with a smile, "Go do what you need to do." After saying that, he took his daughter, turned around, and flew away, leaving a group of pursuers looking at each other. Following these pursuers, they quickly ran home to inform their father that Tianyan was back. "Father, you are finally back. I missed you so much." Sishue's face was full of resentment. In a blink of an eye, he disappeared for more than 10 years. How could she be happy? This is the case of time imbalance. I stayed in that world for a year, but several years passed here. Tianyan said helplessly. "What world is that? Can I go with you?" Sishue's beautiful eyes lit up. "You can't go there for now." Tianyan shook his head. Sishue immediately pouted. She found it very boring. He then smiled and comforted her. "I am only saying for now, it is not safe there now. Don't think that you are invincible just because you have cultivated to this level. You can only be considered as the lowest level there. It is not that I don't want to bring you there, but when things are stable, I will bring you there together." The divine domain was a must. The cultivation environment there was much better than here. He would naturally control the 3 realms to fly there. "Really?" Sishue's eyes lit up. She was very excited. "Why would I lie to you?" Tianyan said as he took out the star bracelet. He handed it to Sishue and said, "This is a gift for you. It is a treasure that I have been refining recently. Treat it as compensation." Sishue took it and hugged Tianyan's shoulder. She said excitedly, "Thank you, father. Let's go see mother now. She misses you so much." "Okay." Tianyan nodded and followed her. When he saw Shishueyan's back again, Shishueyan turned her head subconsciously, and when she saw him, she smiled slightly and said, "You are back." "Well, I am back." There was nothing more beautiful than this sentence, and it made him feel very touched. Only this sentence made him feel like he was home. After a warm moment, he left this place alone and flew to the outside area. Not long after he left, a large group of powerhouses flew in from outside. When they learned that Tianyan had returned, they hurried to greet him. "Empress, where is the heavenly cloud's great emperor?" One of the great emperors asked hurriedly. "Oh, he left again." Shishueyan smiled and left the room. Chapter 1166. After a simple kiss, Tianyan left the 3 realms to find a safe place to undergo the heavenly tribulation. He was almost ready. He wanted to break through to level 10 refinement Earth Lord first. After following him around, he found an uninhabited area. There was no life at all. There were rocks all around. Apart from rocks, there was nothing else. "I'll undergo the heavenly tribulation here." After choosing this place, Tianyan immediately gave the order. "Upgrade to level 10 refinement Earth Lord." Ding, testing to see if the conditions are met. Ding, conditions met. Starting upgrade. 1%. 2%. The data moved up bit by bit. It was completely different from before. It wasn't a one-time upgrade, but a gradual accumulation. It seemed like it had to be moved to at least 100% before it could really be upgraded. At the same time, a thick layer of tribulation cloud began to cover the top of his head. When he saw the thick tribulation cloud, he heaved a sigh of relief. At least it wasn't as terrifying as it was in his dream. That was an attack comparable to a Sir God's attack. It was much more powerful now, but compared to the terrifying heavenly tribulation, it was on a completely different level. It seems that when I break through to the Lord of Heaven, the heavenly tribulation I need to endure should be the heavenly tribulation in my dream. Although Tianyan heaved a sigh of relief, it didn't mean that he would completely relax in the face of this heavenly tribulation. This tribulation cloud was dozens of times more powerful than before. What was rolling on it was no longer just lightning clouds and heavenly fire. There was also a strong life force. It was strange that there was such a strong life force in the tribulation cloud. Could it be that he was going to give him a hard blow, and then use the life force to heal him? The answer was definitely not like that. The heavens wouldn't be so kind. They couldn't wait to kill the person undergoing the heavenly tribulation with one blow. Why would they help them heal? Unless the heavenly tribulation was completely destroyed, there would be no benefits. This benefit was based on the fact that he had destroyed the heavenly tribulation. After the heavenly tribulation exploded, the dispersed energy was absorbed by him. That was why it was regarded as a benefit. If he didn't destroy it with one punch, the benefits would be very little. It was just a single punch, and the difficulty was multiplied crazily. It was not easy to deal with. Therefore, many cultivators would not do that unless they had absolute confidence in themselves. Otherwise, they would not do it. The power has increased. Let me see how strong it is. Etienne's eyes flashed. He raised his fist and punched the tribulation cloud. Just like before, he wanted to destroy the tribulation with one punch. As soon as he got close, the tribulation cloud started to roll crazily. It was completely infuriated by Etienne. Then a terrifying life force swept up and enveloped the area. In the blink of an eye, Etienne felt his body shrink by half. It was obvious that his life force had been sucked out. This was not injecting life force into him, but completely draining his body of life force. The terrifying suction force quickly put him in a predicament. Etienne's heart sank. As expected, the 10 refinements Earth Monarch's heavenly tribulation wasn't that easy to deal with. Then he quickly replaced the longevity suit and restored the life force in his body. Unfortunately, he only had 2 pieces of the longevity suit. Otherwise, his recovery ability would be even more amazing. Explode. Etienne roared and immediately used the crazy damage mode, stacking his damage by 64 times, reaching an extremely terrifying value. Immediately after, he kicked fiercely, and with a boom, the void exploded from his kick. The thick tribulation clouds were quickly blown apart, leaving behind an incomparably huge hole. Based on the previous situation, with such a big hole created by his kick, it would definitely fall apart. The next moment, the huge hole was filled with amazing life force and repaired quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was repaired to its original state. There was no difference from before. To be exact, there was a big difference. The power had become more terrifying. Roar. The tribulation actually roared. A huge palm condensed from heavenly fire, heavenly thunder, and life force grabbed him. When it waved, it quickly sucked away the life force as soon as it got close to him. Its power was much stronger than before, and the power of sucking life force was much greater. The key was that it couldn't be broken. On the contrary, it could be repaired, and its power was much stronger. Explode again. Etienne's eyes turned cold. The celestial divine spear appeared in his hand, and he stabbed it hard. It seemed like he was waving the spear gently, but in fact, he had waved it thousands of times. The void trembled violently under the penetration, and cracks even appeared in the void. With just one move, the tribulation was immediately pierced with thousands of holes. None of the holes were intact, and they all scattered into a large area. However, he didn't stop. He continued to stab it crazily. Every spear was so fast. Swish, swish, swish. The void was about to be penetrated by him. He pierced countless holes in the void again and again. He wanted to completely shatter the tribulation cloud, so that the tribulation cloud couldn't regenerate. Finally, in his madness, the tribulation cloud completely scattered and could no longer be connected. Let's see how you can recover this time. Beads of sweat appeared on Etienne's head, as if he had just gone through a fierce battle. It seemed that the tribulation hadn't recovered. Suddenly, an invisible force tightened its grip on him. Then all the energy in his body was rapidly sucked out. Both the power of planet Water and planet Jupiter in his body were being sucked out crazily. This was like stripping away his power, making him return to the level of an ordinary person. However, if all the power was sucked out, he wouldn't become an ordinary person. Instead, he would turn into a pile of ashes. If even his life force was sucked out, how could he survive? This power. Etienne's heart sank. Such an invisible power couldn't be destroyed by brute force. It was like a strange power that wanted to strip away the energy in his body. If he wanted to resist this power, it wasn't something that could be solved with brute force. He needed to completely suppress this power. As expected, it's not that easy to break through to the 10 refinements Earth Monarch. It's much stranger than before. Etienne really underestimated the tribulation. No wonder he hadn't seen a 10 refinements Earth monarch. He guessed that someone must have thought about how to break through to the 10 refinements Earth monarch. However, in the end he died during the tribulation. It was much more abnormal than before. Now that it was already so terrifying, thinking about it carefully, the tribulation to break through to the Lord of Heaven must be even more terrifying. Seeing that his body was getting drained, he forcefully suppressed it. It was useless. At most, he could only slightly slow down the speed, but not completely suppress this power. Chapter 1167. The heavenly tribulation of a 10 refined Earth Lord was too strange. It was no longer like before, where he could destroy it with a single punch. Now he could destroy it with a single punch, but this strange, special energy was simply impossible to get rid of, and he could not easily suppress it. I want to see if the power of a heavenly venerate can suppress it. Etienne's eyes narrowed. He quickly used the power of a heavenly venerate to suppress this energy. After using it, the power of a heavenly venerate began to suppress it, reducing the speed of extraction. However, there was still a small amount of energy that kept extracting energy from his body. It seemed that even the power of a heavenly venerate could not completely suppress it. The power of a heavenly venerate was just a small part of the energy given by the vast heavenly venerate, which he could use. It felt a little like a protective talisman. There was no limit to the number of times it could be used. The problem was that the consumption was shocking, and there was no growth. This meant that no matter how much his cultivation broke through, this energy would not become stronger. This was a fixed amount of energy that could not grow, so it was very limited. However, the effect of suppressing those within the Divine Lord level was still very good. At the very least, it was much better than before. It seems that this heavenly tribulation also tests the cohesion of one's energy. Etienne shook his head, feeling a headache. He had indeed underestimated this heavenly tribulation, thinking that he could still destroy it with a punch. Now even with the longevity set, it was still difficult to suppress this energy. Clearly, he needed a stronger energy to completely suppress it. I don't believe that I can't completely suppress it. Etienne quickly used the 2 planets in his body and began to rotate crazily. The 2 energies kept converging, becoming stronger and stronger. Then they quickly rushed out. Suppress it. Boom. The 2 converging energies collided with the energy that wrapped around him and canceled each other out. If he wanted to prevent the heavenly tribulation from extracting his energy, he had to use energy that was superior to the other parties. He did not have such power now. Only the power of a heavenly venerate had some effect. What he released now could only expel the heavenly tribulation energy that had invaded his body, and not let it harm his body. Under this impact, his body no longer shrank. Under the 2 vast energies, it quickly healed, returning to its original luster and elasticity. The heavenly tribulation could not be suppressed, but at least his body was fine. Looks like I can only persevere like this. Etienne closed his eyes and began to concentrate on suppressing the energy of the heavenly tribulation. This was the most he could do at the moment. There was nothing else he could do. This was the difference in energy levels. The power of a heavenly venerate and the power of the heavenly way could easily suppress his normal star power. Stellar energy was currently the most basic form of energy. It was also the lowest level of energy. Above that was the power of the heavenly Tao, the power of an Empyrean. Only now did he truly realize that the world was so vast and he still had a long way to go. Just having crazy mode was not enough. He needed to further evolve his energy. 40%, 41%, 42%. While he was resisting the invasion of the energy, he didn't stop leveling up. Instead, he continued to level up bit by bit, albeit at a slower pace. It seemed that as long as he persisted to 100%, he would be able to successfully level up. So far, he could still persevere, but he had consumed too much energy. Not only did he need to maintain his heavenly venerate power, but he also needed to circulate the 2 planets in his body. The consumption was equally shocking. However, this was the only thing he could do now. There was no other way. Under such circumstances, the leveling data increased bit by bit. Finally, It reached 99% and was about to reach 100%. Ding. Data reached 100%. Successfully leveled up to Lord of the 10 Refinements. When this pleasant voice rang out, a terrifying force instantly erupted from his body and swept out in all directions. The strange energy that had been pressing down on him earlier was directly crushed into nothingness. Following that, an extreme divine light shrouded this large space. It was as if the sky had been chiseled through, and an incomparably huge divine light shrouded down. The surroundings became bright, illuminating a large area of space. If there were cultivators around, they would definitely think that some miracle had happened. Otherwise, how could such a shocking situation occur? Tianyan was completely silent. He felt waves of energy constantly rushing in his body, and the two planets resonated at the same time. At this time, he began to frantically absorb the energy of the divine light that shrouded him, nourishing his body and the power of his planets. Everything began to undergo earth-shattering changes. Behind him, an illusory figure appeared. That was the 10th chain. At the Lord of the Earth level, there would be a chain for every refinement. It was just that it wouldn't normally appear. Every time one broke through a level, there would be one more chain. Hence, this level was called refinement. Lord of the 9 refinements meant that there were 9 chains that could lock the energy firmly. When an Earth Lord completely erupted, the illusory figure behind him could see how many chains there were. From this, one could tell how strong the other party was. Now, 10 chains appeared behind Tianyan. It was as if 10 planets were connected together. Each chain was glowing faintly and looked very conspicuous. These 10 chains contained the true power of the heavenly way. He had not yet stepped into the level of the Lord of Heaven, but he already possessed the terrifying power of the heavenly way. Moreover, he was much stronger than the Lord of Heaven. It could be said that they were not on the same level. If the power of the heavenly way that the Lord of Heaven controlled was equivalent to the power of the strong, then the power that he possessed now was equivalent to the King of the Strong. King's power. Lord of the 10 Refinements, the first Earth Lord of all times. An unprecedented level, crushing all Earth Lords. Ding. Successfully completed the main quest breakthrough to Lord of the 10 Refinements, or breakthrough to the level of the Lord of Heaven. Breakthrough to Lord of the 10 Refinements. Gained 1 billion crazy points, 1 billion SPS, 1 billion mastery. At the same time, obtained the title First Earth Lord of all times. A lot of rewards came in, especially the title First Earth Lord of all times. It looked even more amazing. First Earth Lord of all times. All under the Earth Lord are ants. When facing an Earth Lord, it can increase the damage by 30 times. When facing the Lord of Heaven, it can increase the damage by 15 times. At the same time, it has the strongest power of the heavenly way. When facing an opponent with the power of the heavenly way, it can suppress the opponent by a maximum of 1000%. Chapter 1168. Ding. Successfully accepted main quest Suppress Evil Spirit Race, completely destroy Evil Spirit Race. Reward. 5 billion crazy points, 5 billion SPS, 5 billion mastery. Also obtain the title Evil Spirit Race Killer. While Tianyan was shocked by this title, a new main quest popped up, that is to suppress Evil Spirit Race, destroy Evil Spirit Race's domain, which is the Evil Spirit Race's residence. There was no main quest before, but now that this main quest popped up, it means that he has the ability to eliminate Evil Spirit Race. This does not mean that he can suppress Evil Spirit Race immediately. After all, having a main quest and completing it immediately are two different things. This main quest finally popped up. Tianyan's eyes flashed. This main quest has not popped up. He knows that he is not in a hurry to find Evil Spirit Race for the time being. Now it seems that the time is a little bit more ripe. Even if he faces the Lord of Heaven late stage, he can still suppress it. After all, this title has a 15 times bonus effect against the Lord of Heaven. If he uses the crazy damage mode, there will be a 64 times superposition. The two add up to 79 times the damage, enough to destroy the world. What's more amazing is that there are 5 high-grade heavenly path martial arts. If he cultivates it, it will definitely increase the damage by dozens of times. Even the high-grade reincarnation level martial art, violent heavenly secret art, can let him erupt 15 times the power, let alone high-grade heavenly path martial arts. It seems that I have to cultivate these 5 martial arts. I can't waste them. Etienne's eyes flashed. He planned to cultivate here. The energy concentration here is not high, but the advantage is that he has a lot of time. 10 years here is equivalent to 1 year in the divine realm. It means that he doesn't have to worry about the changes over there if he stays here for a long time. On the contrary, it is an advantage here. It feels like time is accelerated. For those who want to transcend heavenly tribulation, it is not a good thing. For those who don't need to transcend heavenly tribulation, it is a race against time to cultivate. But most of them will not come here to cultivate. There are no resources here. Why would they come here? For Etienne, he still has a lot of resources, and cultivating martial arts does not require a lot of resources. However, staying here would only hasten the arrival of the heavenly tribulation. Even if he was unwilling to break through to the level of the Lord of Heaven, the heavenly tribulation would still descend after 1,000 years. At that time, if his cultivation was insufficient, the terrifying heavenly tribulation would probably kill him completely. 1,000 years isn't a long time. Etienne shook his head and turned around, preparing to go into seclusion to cultivate the 5 heavens path martial arts. When he returned, he would have to deal with all kinds of greetings. Etienne was the god of the 3 realms who led them. Naturally, they had to come and pay their respects. As long as they weren't dead, they had to come obediently. On one hand, he didn't want to die. If Etienne returned, he would definitely have to greet him. If he didn't greet him and instead vented his anger on him, he would be done for. On the other hand, he wanted to see how Etienne was doing. He wanted to see how his overall situation had changed, and whether he had become stronger or not. After sending them off, Etienne finally heaved a sigh of relief. Dealing with these things is really not my forte. It's been hard on you all these years. Etienne shook his head. Even though they were sincere, it was still tiring for them to come and fawn over him one after another. These are all necessary things. They are all loyal subjects. And accompanying a ruler is like accompanying a tiger. If they don't come and pay their respects to you, they would feel uneasy, Shuoyun said with a smile. I know that. Etienne nodded. How could he not understand these things? Tianyan, what do you plan to do now that you're back? Shuoyun asked. I intend to cultivate here so that I can make a breakthrough to the level of the Lord of Heaven. Etienne looked at her and said with a smile. Very soon, I will be able to lead the 3 realms to the God realm. At that time, your cultivation environment will be greatly improved, and it will be much easier for you to make breakthroughs. Tianyan. Shuoyun leaned over and laid on Etienne's shoulder. Don't be so hard on yourself. It's enough that you can protect the 3 realms. All these years, you have been working hard outside, but we can't help you at all. She felt very sad because she had been watching Etienne working hard outside. She cultivated like crazy. In the entire 3 realms, there were not many people who could be compared to her. But no matter how hard she cultivated, she still could not catch up with Etienne. She was already quite strong now. She had reached the 7th level of the God King stage, and was ready to break through to the Earth Monarch stage. This kind of talent was very good even in the God realm. After all, the 3 realms cultivation environment was not as good as the God realms. How can you not help me? You should manage this place well, and it will be of use soon. Etienne's eyes flickered. Cultivate and strengthen the 3 realms, and then we will directly control a world. He had spent so many resources to cultivate the 3 realms. It was not just for nostalgia, but to cultivate the 3 realms into the most loyal soldiers. By then on the battlefield, any expert would be able to guard a place. It was just like when he was leading a force. It was very difficult to succeed if he only relied on himself. Even if he used violence to suppress it, without any subordinates to control it, everything would still be taken back. Therefore, he needed talents in this area. Now he was constantly cultivating them. They would definitely be useful in the future. If he wanted to protect his hometown, he would not be able to protect it all the time just by becoming stronger. What he needed was the entire three realms to become completely strong. Yes, we will. Shi Shuiyun's eyes flickered with excitement. She also wanted to gallop on the battlefield. Then, Yi Tianyan took out a pile of martial arts and resources and handed them to Shi Shuiyun. He started to cultivate. In fact, it was very simple. He just took out the 5 high-grade Heaven's Path martial arts and used the appraisal eye to analyze them. This way he could easily learn them. It was much faster than him cultivating bit by bit. If not for the appraisal eye, no matter how talented he was, he would not have been able to comprehend these martial arts so easily. Time slowly passed, and he gradually comprehended the 5 martial arts. The content of each of them was shocking. Compared to the martial arts he had now, they were much stronger. Basically, he could discard all the martial arts he had cultivated in the past. It's about time. I've basically finished cultivating them. This world is really boundless. Even high-grade Heaven's Path martial arts are so profound. I wonder what kind of effects the higher-grade martial arts would have. Yi Tianyan stood up. When he walked out of the door to rest, he saw Shi Shuiyun discussing something with her subordinates. What are you guys discussing? You look so serious. Yi Tianyan walked over and asked with a smile. Tianyan, you're out. Shi Shuiyun smiled. We're discussing 9th younger sister's coronation as the Holy Maiden. Her prestige in the 3 realms is extremely high, and everyone is talking about her being crowned as the Holy Maiden. Chapter 1169. Yes, the Saintess of the 3 realms. Sister Jiu has been running back and forth for the 3 realms, helping many commoners and nurturing many experts. Perhaps it has something to do with her background. She was born poor, but she never forgot her roots. Instead, she saved the poor. No matter who she treats, she has a sacred heart. She is the kindest person in the 3 realms, so we plan to make her the Saintess. What do you think? Shi Shuiyun smiled and asked. Yi Tianyan nodded. Jiu Lingyun's family background was indeed very ordinary, but now, her cultivation was not low. She had reached the God King stage, and she was also very friendly. She often helped people, so it was no surprise that she was promoted to the position of Holy Maiden. I agree, since it's everyone's request, then we'll do as they say. Yi Tianyan smiled and said. I'm not surprised that Sister Jiu received such recognition. Jiu Lingyun had always been nice to her fellow disciples, and she was even nicer to strangers. She had a kind heart and knew that kindness would be rewarded. This was all because of Yi Tianyan. If it wasn't for Yi Tianyan, she would have starved to death on the streets. All right, we'll hold the Saintess coronation ceremony soon. After Yi Tianyan agreed, the decision was made. Even if he wasn't here, it would still be done. After all, Jiu Lingyun had the qualifications to do so. A few days later, the coronation ceremony was held in a grand manner in the imperial capital. All the experts of the 3 realms came to congratulate her. Whether they knew her or not, they all came to congratulate her. Most of the commoners came. Jiu Lingyun's fame had spread far and wide. Many people were helped by her, so they all came to pay their respects. The imperial capital did not reject anyone. There was no discrimination at all. Everyone was welcome to come in and watch the coronation ceremony. Such a grand coronation ceremony was unprecedented. Even Yi Tianyan's coronation ceremony didn't have so many people. It was enough to show how high her prestige was. It was comparable to a great emperor. Yi Tianyan was pleased to see this. It was all Jiu Lingyun's hard work. If she hadn't done so many good deeds and accumulated so much fame, there wouldn't have been so many people coming to visit her. Especially the commoners, who had gathered outside in circles. They may not be able to see, but that doesn't stop them from coming over to celebrate. The entire imperial capital was bustling with noise and excitement, much livelier than usual. Soon, Jiu Lingyun slowly appeared on the coronation divine stage. Yi Tianyan was standing at the top, waiting for Jiu Lingyun to walk over with a smile. Jiu Lingyun's eyes rippled as she looked at Yi Tianyan with gratitude. She did not expect that the person who would be holding her coronation ceremony would be Yi Tianyan. This made her feel that everything was perfect. At least in terms of glory, she had reached the highest level. Heavenly Cloud's great emperor. Jiulingyun came in front of Yi Tianyan and slowly knelt on one knee. Get up. Yi Tianyan gently raised his hand and let Jiulingyun get up. He looked at her ordinary face and said with a gratified smile, "Unknowingly, you have walked your own path and reached a new realm. I am very pleased about this. You becoming the saintess is what everyone wants." Jiulingyun's appearance was very ordinary. Even after breaking through to the God King stage, she still maintained her original ordinary appearance. But it was this ordinary appearance that became her trademark. Her appearance was very ordinary, but it always exuded a strong sense of affinity. It was more intimate than any beautiful face. No, everything I have is given to me by Heavenly Cloud's great emperor. Without Heavenly Cloud's great emperor, it would be impossible for me to reach this point. Jiulingyun's eyes were full of gratitude. She had always been very grateful to Yi Tianyan. Even now, she felt that she would never be able to repay him. Don't be so modest, I am just your guide. For you to be able to reach this step, it is inseparable from your hard work. Yi Tianyan smiled and said, "Now let me ask you, after you become the saintess, will you still maintain your original attitude and save the world?" "Yes, I will not forget my roots. I will always follow this goal, and let the three realms coexist peacefully. I will make the three realms less and less painful, and more happy," Jiulingyun said firmly. Whether she became the saintess or not, she would stick to this goal. "Very well, then I will now grant you the title of saintess, and you will become the saintess of the three realms." Yi Tianyan came in front of Jiulingyun, took out a crystal crown, and gently put it on her head. At this moment, the audience cheered, and the sound of cheering resounded throughout the three realms. With such a prestigious Jiulingyun becoming the saintess, it was really what everyone expected. Successfully completed, Training Saintess Quest. Received 3,000 prestige points and Stabilizing the Three Realms achievement. Stabilizing the Three Realms. With the existence of the saintess, the loyalty of the three realms will reach 100%, and no one will betray the three realms. Yi Tianyan was stunned. He didn't know such a heaven-defying thing existed. Now that he had returned, there were indeed many people who admired him, but there were still many who didn't trust him. After all, they had only heard of his deeds, and didn't know the real situation. Jiulingyun was different. She had been wandering around the three realms, and her prestige was even higher than Yi Tianyun's. Therefore, with her stabilizing the three realms, there would be no betrayal. He didn't expect to encounter such a special achievement after returning. Only with absolute loyalty, when one expands his power in the future, would his power be more stable. Jiulingyun was really a heaven-defying saintess. She really stabilized the three realms. He didn't know if she would be able to stabilize the celestial realm in the future. An absolutely loyal celestial realm was something unimaginable. No matter which power, their disciples would definitely be disloyal. Now that Jiulingyun was here, nothing would be a problem. "Big brother Yi, I will help you." Jiulingyun gripped the scepter in her hand and smiled at him. "No, I should say that we will all support you and work hard behind your back. You don't have to worry about anything. My sisters are working even harder than I am." Yi Tianyan was very touched. Looking around, he saw Yi Yue and the others were all here, and Yi Qingxian was beside him. All of them were following him, helping him. Without them, the three realms would have been in chaos. Violence alone couldn't solve everything, it would only make things worse. "I know, it's been hard on you all." Yi Tianyan smiled and waved his hand. Rays of divine light appeared in the air, enveloping their bodies. They were extremely eye-catching. "The three realms are glorious because of you all." The three realms didn't belong to him, it belonged to them. Chapter 1170. Since Jiulingyun became a saintess, the entire three realms celebrated with all kinds of celebrations and pardons. Everyone cheered for this, and after a week of celebration, everyone returned to their respective areas to cultivate. Many people didn't want to leave this place. However, they had their own things to do, so they had to leave and return to their respective areas. Soon, the lively three realms quickly calmed down, and life returned to its original state. Yi Tianyan also began to cultivate, and after thoroughly understanding the 5 heavenly path martial arts, he was doing well in all aspects. In a blink of an eye, he had stayed here for several years. Every time he came back, no matter how long it was always the warmest moment for him. When he cultivated, he was even more motivated than when he cultivated alone. However, he couldn't stay here forever. He still needed to break through to the level of the Lord of Heaven. If he wanted to break through to the level of the Lord of Heaven, he needed to face the terrifying heavenly tribulation. Then he couldn't stay here forever. After all, from the current situation, it was not enough to deal with the heavenly tribulation. He needed to further strengthen himself. Although he completed a lot of tasks and obtained a lot of crazy points, it was far from enough to level up. He still needed to accumulate a lot of crazy points to further improve himself. Tianyan, are you leaving? Shi Shuiyin felt something was wrong. Tianyan was just sitting beside her, and he didn't say a word, but she noticed it. Yes, there are still a lot of things to do. Tianyan smiled faintly. But don't worry, I can come back anytime, so don't worry about anything. With the teleportation godstone, he didn't need to worry about anything. He could come back whenever he wanted, but he couldn't bring people back. Unless they became his divine general. Then he could use the divine general summoning token to summon them. Of course, he could put them in his inner world and use the teleportation godstone to fly away, but it was useless to bring them there now. He had some authority in the heavenly spring divine realm, but it wasn't much. Even if he brought a group of people with him, it wouldn't be easy. And Shi Shuiyin didn't say much, nor did she try to persuade him to stay. She just quietly lay in his arms, enjoying the last moments of warmth. Without any sentimental words, Tianyan turned around and left after a moment of tenderness, leaving Shi Shuiyin alone in the empty room. This scene had been repeated countless times, but Shi Shuiyin had no regrets. The only thing she could do now was to manage the 3 realms well. Every time Tianyan returned, he would see a brand new 3 realms. Tianyan used the teleportation godstone to teleport back to the heavenly spring god realm. The world was not in chaos. Everything was the same as usual. He had only disappeared for less than a year, so there was no need to worry about people looking for him everywhere. Unless he disappeared for a few hundred years, no one would be able to find him. A few years or even a few decades wouldn't be a problem. Just a little closed-door training would take up a lot of time. Thus, disappearing for a period of time wouldn't cause much trouble. Let's go to the 3 heavens divine realm and take a look. Tianyan didn't rush to cultivate or find trouble with the evil spirit race. Instead, he went to the 3 heavens divine realm. He wanted to find the 3 heavenly kings. They were the protectors of the 3 realms. Without them, the 3 realms would have been destroyed. He wanted to find them and see what was going on. One of them, the king of the heavens, was his ancestor. After deciding on his target, he turned around and flew to the 3 heavens divine realm. Since his identity was more valuable than before, as long as it wasn't a restricted area, he would be allowed to pass. Thus, it wasn't a problem for him to pass through the passages to other divine realms. After leaving the heavenly spring god realm, he boarded the spirit ship and flew to the 3 heavens divine realm. The 3 heavens divine realm was quite far from the heavenly spring god realm. Coincidentally, during this period of time, Tianyan continued to study the 5 martial arts manuals. Actually, he had already comprehended them, but he still wanted to study them. In his mind, he imagined how to circulate them smoothly. Stop right there. At this moment, a loud shout came from the front, causing him to open his eyes slowly. What he saw was 4 cultivators blocking his way. Their cultivation wasn't high. They were only at the 2nd or 3rd refinement of the Earth Monarch realm. Looking at their formation, it was obvious that they were here to rob him. Indeed, in the next moment one of them shouted, "I opened this road, I planted these trees. If you want to leave, leave behind money." The vulgar robbery words almost made Tianyan burst out laughing. Tianyan flew out of the spirit ship and looked at the 4 of them. He said indifferently, "Where are the roads and trees here?" It was pitch black all around. Not to mention the roads and trees, there were even a pile of rocks flying around. Bullshit. The leading cultivator's face turned red and he shouted angrily, "If you want to live, leave behind all your money." Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. The four of them quickly surrounded him and completely sealed off his escape route. Their expressions were fierce and their movements were practiced. It was obvious that this wasn't their first time doing this. The Three Heavens Divine Realm was a natural gathering place for rogue cultivators. However, there were many similar robbers. In a situation where there were no resources, the fastest way to obtain resources was undoubtedly to rob others. It could be said that the Three Heavens Divine Realm was quite chaotic. This was because there was no region lord to manage it. The Three Heavens Divine Realm's overall resources were not bad, but it was much worse than other divine realms. At the same time, the area was not big. Therefore, not many people would take over this place, especially since it was so chaotic here. If someone took over this place, there would be too many things to do. It wasn't worth it at all. As time passed, this place became more and more chaotic. Unless one was a rogue cultivator, no one would be willing to come here. However, the first-grade Divine Realm cultivators were still very willing to come here. No matter how bad the Three Heavens Divine Realm was, it was still a second-grade Divine Realm. The cultivation environment was much better than a first-grade Divine Realm. Tianyan glanced at them. He stretched out his hand and flicked it lightly. A shadow appeared in front of them. There were 3 heads on this shadow. In fact, they were the heads of the heaven-creating Divine King and the others. These robbers must have seen a lot of people. Maybe they could recognize them. Have you seen them before? If you have, tell me. I can spare your life. I can even give you some compensation. Tianyan said indifferently. Damn it. Don't be so arrogant. We are not here to inquire about information. We are here to rob. The leader of the robbers was furious. Kill him. Let this kid know our rules. Immediately, the 4 of them roared and rushed towards Tianyan with their swords drawn. Neo. Tianyan's eyes turned cold. The power of the title of the number 1 Earth Lord of all times was immediately revealed. Against an Earth Lord, there was absolute suppression power, directly compressing their strength by 1,000%. As long as the difference in heavenly energy was relatively large, the suppression effect would quickly reach the strongest. Chapter 1171. The power of absolute suppression made the bandits feel a sense of powerlessness. They felt as if their strength had been withdrawn. That's right, it was withdrawn. They felt as if they couldn't exert any strength. No matter how hard they tried, they could only force out a little. They felt as if they had turned into mortals. This was the power of absolute suppression. When the opponent's heavenly Tao power was much weaker than their own, the effect would be very shocking. Now the effect was very shocking. The opponent had lost the ability to fight and could not resist at all. Their legs were so weak that they couldn't stand. An unprecedented fear surged in their hearts. They had never encountered something like this before. It was too terrifying. Even when facing the stronger Lord of Heaven, they didn't feel so powerless. After all, when facing the Lord of Heaven, they could at least turn and run. They didn't even have the chance to run. They directly knelt in front of Tianyan. Their backs were already wet with cold sweat. What power is this? Their hearts trembled. They felt as if they weren't facing a hothead, but a nameless expert, and a very powerful one at that. I'll ask you one last time. Have you seen these 3 people? Tianyan looked at them calmly. They looked at the image again. After looking carefully, they all turned their heads and said, No, we haven't seen them. Rip. Tianyan waved his hand and one of them was quickly killed. He turned into a pile of ashes. Not even a drop of blood was left. This caused one of them to be dead. He turned into a pile of experience points. We really haven't seen them. They are not related to us. We can't hide it. My lord, you must believe us. The leader was crying in fear. He constantly begged for mercy. He didn't have his previous ferocious demeanor. Tianyan waved his hand again. The others turned into a pile of ashes. He killed without mercy. I really don't know. I know a place that is good at finding people. The leader hurriedly shouted, hoping that Tianyan would spare his life. Speak, Tianyan said. Yes, it's the Moon Spirit Pavilion in River Basin City. They specialize in collecting information. They should be able to find the people you want, the leader said truthfully. Very good. Then you can die. Etianyan pressed down with his hand and the leader exploded. He turned into a pile of ashes. He didn't need to use any powerful strength. Just the power of this title was enough to easily crush them. It really was that under the Lord of Heaven, everyone was an ant. First, the suppression of energy, then the suppression of power. Then it was the suppression of power. He didn't know what had happened to the leader, but he was already dead. He couldn't even say what he wanted to say. The leader didn't know how, but he died. The last thing he wanted to say. Etianyan thought. The reason was very simple. These fellows were all vicious and merciless people. Leaving behind money to buy the way was basically bullshit. He could tell at a glance that these people were people who killed and robbed. There was no need to show mercy to such people. If they deserved to be killed, then they would be killed without mercy. River Basin City's Moon Soul Pavilion? It's a place that specializes in selling information. You don't even need to mention it. I will go look for it. Etianyan waved his hand and quickly flew forward. Normally, if one wanted to find someone, they would either go to a restaurant or the Moon Spirit Pavilion, which was similar to gathering information. The Moon Spirit Pavilion would provide missions or collect information about many people, which could be sold for money. He had looked for these people before, so he wasn't surprised. As he continued to fly, he encountered several groups of robbers along the way. It had to be said that there were so many robbers on this road. When they saw him flying over, some of them immediately intercepted him. Just like the robbers from before, they all wanted to extort some money from him. Some of them were willing to spare his life, while others wanted to silence him. Who would have thought that there would be so many bandits on such a short road? It had to be said that the Three Heavens divine realm was really too chaotic. If anyone came alone, they would really be dead. If they showed their face, they would immediately become a target. If they were lucky, they would at most be robbed. If they were unlucky, they would be chopped into 8 pieces. Hence, along the way, he killed many robbers. If they didn't come close, he couldn't be bothered with them. If they didn't know what to do and came close, he would kill them immediately. After flying for a while, a huge planet finally appeared in front of him. There was no doubt that it was the River Basin City that they had been talking about. After flying in, he saw that the River Basin City was very wide. However, the cultivators here were very mixed. Most of the races were here. However, their levels were relatively low. If their levels were high, they wouldn't be here. Instead, they would have been chosen by other divine territories. Most of the people here were not very talented, and their race's abilities were relatively low. There were also people with special abilities. They didn't like to join other forces because they didn't like the feeling of restriction. It was a pretty good choice to be a king here. Hence, although this place was very mixed, there were also experts. Etianyan glanced around. Among them, there were many Lord of Heaven here. As for divine lords, they definitely wouldn't run around the streets. At least, Lord of Heaven level experts were relatively common here. There were also many Earth Lords above the 5th or 6th refinement. In short, the biggest problem here was that it was too chaotic. If one was not careful, they would die without a burial place. After all, there were no rules here. Once they left the River Basin City, they wouldn't even know how they died outside. If they wanted to survive here, they had to keep a low profile. Otherwise, they definitely wouldn't live past tomorrow. This place is really mixed. Etianyan glanced to the side. There was a strong man who happened to meet his eyes and immediately stared back at him. Kid, what are you looking at? Believe it or not, I will stab your eyes blind. The strong man at the 4th refinement said sternly. Etianyan couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. He turned his head and looked forward. He couldn't be bothered to look at the strong man. He just happened to look at him. When the strong man saw that Etianyan wasn't looking at him, he thought that Etianyan was afraid and laughed loudly. From the initial robbers to the local ruffians here, he knew that the Three Heavens divine territories were chaotic enough. The more chaotic a place was, the easier it was for a crisis to erupt. The heaven-creating divine king, and the others were here. He wondered what the situation was like. Would they be plotted against by others? Thinking of this, he sped up and headed to the Moon Spirit Pavilion. After spending a lot of effort, he finally found the Moon Spirit Pavilion. Standing at the entrance, he was really shocked when he sized up the Moon Spirit Pavilion. The Moon Spirit Pavilion wasn't very eye-catching. It was just a small house. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it. Chapter 1172. This is the Moon Spirit Pavilion? Isn't it a little too simple? Tianyan knew that a lot of things could not be understood just by looking at the surface. However, wasn't this Moon Spirit Pavilion a little too low-key? If it wasn't for the simple signboard outside with the words, Moon Spirit Pavilion carved on it, he wouldn't have been able to tell. He didn't think too much about it. He lifted his feet and walked in. The moment he entered, a rotten smell wafted out from inside. It was suffocating. Tianyan frowned. Isn't this place a little too shabby? After he entered, he saw a small old man sitting on the side. He was holding a fan and slowly fanning himself. A cool breeze blew gently, blowing away the stench. This old man's cultivation was not low. He was at the 6th level of the Lord of Heaven, which was a pretty good level. Who would have thought that he would be dressed so sloppily here? He didn't like to bathe, and his body stank? He looked like an ordinary old man. But Tianyan knew that he wasn't simple. He was a type of disguise that could make people lower their guard. In the entire Moon Spirit Pavilion, it looked like there was only this old man. There was no one else. In the entire room, there was basically only one chair, and the old man was lying on it. There wasn't even a table or chair. When he entered, the old man slowly sat up. The fan in his hand was slightly cold. With his cultivation, he was basically impervious to fire and water. How could he still feel hot? But he liked this feeling, so he kept waving his fan. "Oh, are you here to accept a mission or to ask for information?" The old man asked slowly. "I'm here to ask for information." Tianyan didn't suspect that the old man was a liar. With his cultivation, it would be a waste of his talent. It would be better for him to join a decent power. He believed that the robbers from before wouldn't lie. They were on the verge of death, so it was impossible for them to lie. If you want information about cultivators, you need a mid-grade reincarnation level weapon. If you want information about treasures, you need 2 mid-grade reincarnation level weapons. Forget it, it's too troublesome. I'm too lazy to explain. Just tell me what you want to know. The old man lazily lay back down, looking even more casual. I want to ask about the situation of these 3 people. I wonder where they appeared. Tianyan released the appearance of the 3 people for the old man to see. The old man casually glanced at them and said slowly, 3 people? Then I'll need 3 medium-grade reincarnation level weapons. Deliver them first. Without saying a word, Tianyan threw out 3 mid-grade reincarnation grade weapons. Although the 3 of them would probably be together, he still took out 3 items to prove his sincerity in order to get a clearer picture. The old man waved his hand and put away the 3 mid-grade reincarnation grade weapons. He smiled and said, "As expected of the genius who has been in the limelight recently, not only did you complete the Heavenly Lord path, but you also achieved amazing results in the God Creation Palace. It's really surprising that a human could reach this stage." Tianyan squinted at him. Without a doubt, this old man was showing off his skills in front of him. From the side view, he could tell that this old man really did collect information, and he was very accurate. Now he could accurately describe Tianyan's situation. With just one look, he was able to recognize him. Tianyan did not change his appearance. If he couldn't even recognize him, Tianyan really did not believe in the Moon Spirit Pavilion's ability. As expected of the Moon Spirit Pavilion, it looks simple and crude, but its information collection is top-notch. Tianyan smiled faintly and did not get angry. If I can't even do this, how would I dare to open the Moon Spirit Pavilion here? The old man smiled faintly and said, "The situation of your 3 friends is a little complicated. According to the latest information, they were captured by bandits as subordinates. The 3 of them are quite capable, so they were immediately targeted and placed in different positions. If it were anyone else, they would have been killed long ago. The main thing is that they have some value. The old man flicked his hand, and an astrolabe landed in Etienne's hand. He said, "This is their current position. As for the latest information, I'm not very sure. This happened half a month ago. Unless there are major changes, you should be able to find them based on this." Etienne took the astrolabe and immediately saw the coordinates of the three of them. Everyone's position was different. Thinking about it carefully, the three of them cultivated differently, so they would definitely be placed in different areas. He originally thought that he would be given a simple summary of the situation. Who knew that he would be given such detailed coordinates? This Moon Spirit Pavilion was really shocking. Its ability to collect information was really shocking. He didn't know where it came from. "I'll give you a piece of information for free. The bandits are a big force in the Three Skies Holy Realm. They have many powerful Lord of Heaven, and even God Lords. You can either ransom them or steal them. It's up to you. With your achievements, it won't be a problem for the Heavenly Spring Holy Realm to send some experts over to help you." The old man reminded him in a friendly manner. "Thank you for the reminder. If I need any information in the future, I will come again." Etienne was very happy. If he needed any resources in the future, he could come and find him. "Thank you for your patronage." The old man smiled faintly and lay back down, continuing to fan himself. After Etienne left, the old man smiled faintly and said, "I didn't expect to meet the sect master's junior brother. Even though he's just a disciple, who knows what the future holds? I have to report this to the sect master." After saying that, he flicked his finger, and a crystal shot into the wall beside him. The wall trembled slightly, and for some unknown reason, the crystal disappeared. After Etienne got the coordinates, he immediately flew to their location. Using the principle of proximity, he saved the heaven-creating Divine King first. The heaven-creating Divine King could be considered half his master. After all, he had received many of his inheritances. "Xianlong Dragon Sect, if anything happens to them, I will definitely bury you." Etienne's eyes turned cold. If anything happened to one of the three guardians, he would definitely vent his anger on the Xianlong Dragon Sect. He would bury all the experts of the Xianlong Dragon Sect. The Xianlong Dragon Sect was the bandit sect. It was a very shocking force. It was considered one of the bigger forces in the Three Skies Holy Realms. It had a wide range of forces. He was now heading to one of the cities, Filong City. Chapter 1173. What are you doing? Hurry up and carve the divine seal for me. A whip lashed out and slammed into the heaven-creating Divine King, leaving a deep bloodstain on his body. However, he was no longer called the heaven-creating Divine King, but Lord creating heaven and earth. How could he dare to call himself a Divine King? In this God realm, a Divine King could not be called that. Lord creating heaven and earth clenched his teeth, enduring the dizziness, and continued to carve complex divine seals. His current level had reached the level of a second-grade divine carving master. Logically speaking, he could still join a good force. However, he was too old and was rejected by most forces. After cultivating in the three realms for many years, it was not easy to break through to the Divine King realm. However, such an old age was worthless in the second-grade God realm, and he would be neglected. In the first-grade God realm, he would be worshipped instead. This was a huge gap. He had been carving divine seals for a long time, and the consumption was astonishing. Every time he was given only a little time to rest, it was simply killing him. They would not care about Lord creating heaven and earth situation, constantly abusing him and urging him to finish the work. In addition to Lord creating heaven and earth, other divine carving masters were busy here. These were all captured and constantly enslaved. Their cultivations were not high, and thus, even a slightly weaker heaven monarch could easily suppress them. Whoever dared to resist would be killed immediately. Unless they were particularly outstanding, they would probably be treated better or transferred to another place. However, those here were all selected and would not be selected into the preferential treatment category. Overall, they were too old. The divine carving master's level was not bad, but too old would limit their future prospects. From the selection of disciples in the second-grade God realm, one's bone age could not be too high. If it was too old, they would be directly eliminated. After all, first-grade divine carving masters were absolutely common. Even first-grade divine carving masters were relatively common. With a little effort and more time, it was not a problem to become a first-grade divine carving master. The problem was whether they could continue to sprint and reach the third grade or above. If they could not reach this level, they were trash. If their bone age was too high, it meant that there was no hope of breaking through, so naturally, they would not be recruited. Therefore, although many of the disciples in the God Creation Palace were first-grade divine carving masters, they were still young and had enough time to break through. The divine engraving masters that fell here were even more miserable. Which one of them did not have a bone age of more than 10,000 years? This meant that they had been a star venerate for too long, becoming even less valuable. A cultivator's bone age was highly valued. It wasn't that the older one was, the more valuable one was, but the younger one was. After all, in a young state, cultivation would yield twice the results with half the effort, and the speed of comprehension would also increase. At different stages, there would be different judgments. It did not mean that a 10,000-year skeletal age was weak. For example, who would dare say that an Empyrean with a skeletal age of 10,000 years was weak? He would still be a peerless genius. To be able to cultivate to the Empyrean level at the 10,000-year level, if he wasn't a genius, then what was he? When the guards patrolled to the side, Lord of Heaven and Earth's eyes turned cold. He nodded to the person next to him, turned around and rushed forward quickly, dodging to the corner at an extremely fast speed. In this corner, there were already 4 people hiding here. It was obvious that this was planned. The guards have already gone out to patrol. They will be back in roughly the time it takes for 2 incense sticks to burn. Take advantage of this time to escape. After escaping, everyone will immediately disperse. Don't be in a hurry to escape from Phylong City. Hide in the residential area first. Lord of Heaven and Earth seemed to be the leader. He made a long story short with the other 4 people. When the time comes, they will definitely send people to capture us. The only thing we can do is to hide and wait for the news to die down. Or we can take advantage of the gap and escape from Phylong City immediately. As soon as he finished speaking, Lord Heaven and Earth Creator waved his hand, and all of them rushed forward. Everyone burst out with their fastest speed and flew forward at high speed. When Lord of Heaven and Earth wanted to escape, he was suddenly enveloped by a net, tightly binding him. He could not move at all. Not only Lord of Heaven and Earth, but the other 2 people were also bound. Lord of Heaven and Earth, They saw that the one who caught them was not someone else, but their companion, Lord of Heaven and Earth. He was the one who threw the net and caught all of them. You still want to escape? Lord of Heaven and Earth said with a sinister smile. Obediently stay here and become the bargaining chip for my freedom. Immediately, the guard sensed the situation and quickly rushed over. He looked at the situation in front of him and said, "What is going on?" "Sir, the 3 of them wanted to escape. I caught them and handed them over to you," Lord of Heaven and Earth said respectfully. "You bunch of bastards, you actually want to escape?" The guard shouted in anger after hearing this. After saying that, he suddenly kicked one of them, causing his body to cave in and almost explode. "That's right, I immediately caught them when I knew that they wanted to escape. It is an honor to work for Sir, to work for Phylong City. But they actually want to escape," Lord of Heaven and Earth said with a faint smile. "I also want to work for Phylong City like you, as one of the supervisors here." Now they know what it means to be a bargaining chip for freedom. They are the bargaining chips. These people are very willing to help them. It is a way to show their loyalty. The guard looked at him from top to bottom and said with smile, "You are quite clever. All right, I will report this to Sir. You should be able to become a guard and be in charge of this area. There is indeed a lack of manpower here, but it seems like your ability is not bad. It should not be a problem for you to be in charge of this area." "Many thanks, Sir." Lord of Heaven and Earth is very excited. This is the result he wanted. He doesn't want to carve divine seals here all the time. The most important thing is that after carving them, he may not be able to survive. Maybe these people will be cruel and merciless and get rid of them. As for following Lord of Heaven and Earth's plan to escape, It seems feasible, but the chances of them escaping are very slim. Rather than taking a gamble, it is better to capture the three of them and show their loyalty. This way he can get rid of them. Facts have proven that his method is not wrong. He really made the right bet. Now it is your turn. Since you want to escape, then don't blame me for being cruel and merciless. The guard sneered. A long sword appeared in his hand and dragged the three of them out of the net, preparing to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Where do you want to drag them to? At this time, a figure flew down from the side and blocked the guard's path. Chapter 1174. Who are you? Do you know where this is? The guard asked coldly after he calmed down. Isn't this Filong City? The person who arrived here in time was none other than Tianyan. He just came to Filong City and casually walked around to see if he could find heaven creating divine king. He happened to see this kind of thing happening here, and after a little investigation, he found out that the person who was caught was heaven creating divine king. You know that this is Filong City, but you dare to fly here at will. I don't know who you are, but trespassing here at will is a capital crime, the guard said angrily. After that, the guard pulled out his sword and tried to stab Tianyan. Tianyan gave him a very bad feeling, so he wanted to kill him as soon as possible to avoid future troubles. Tianyan easily dodged the attack and kicked the guard with his foot. Boom! The guard was kicked out by Tianyan and slammed into the wall in front of him, creating a big hole. Even with the blessing of Divine Seal, it was still smashed, which shows how amazing the power of his kick is. Ding! Successfully killed Filong City Guard. Obtained 6 compressed EXP, 2 compressed Crazy Point, 1 compressed Sin Point. Obtained Crescent Sword, mid-grade reincarnation level. Crescent Armor, mid-grade reincarnation level. 5 EXP Pill. After the data upgrade, the EXP data seems to shrink by more than half, but its usefulness has increased. 1 compressed EXP is equivalent to 100 billion EXP. 1 compressed Crazy Point is equivalent to 10 million Crazy Point. 1 Sin Point is equivalent to 1 million Sin Point. After the compression, the data is no longer so exaggerated, but the essence is the same. It's just not as exaggerated as before, but the effect is the same. Such a loud noise suddenly attracted the attention of the guards on the side, and they flew over. When they saw the intruder, their face turned cold and quickly surrounded the side. Rip! At this time, the solid iron net was torn, and the 3 people who were caught took advantage of this gap to escape outside. One of them stopped, and didn't rush to escape. This person is the heaven-creating Divine Lord. He didn't escape with the other 2 companions, but chose to stand on the side. Heaven-creating Divine Lord, what are you doing? Hurry up and escape. That's right. Hurry up and escape. It'll be too late if we're late. For the time being, the 2 of them could not be bothered with Earth Lord Tianyong. Although they were furious, if the guards surrounded them, they would not be able to escape. You guys run first. This friend came down to save us, so I can't run away. Lord Heaven and Earth Creator was still so upright. Compared to the other guards, his cultivation was relatively low, but he did not intend to escape. Instead, he hid at the side and watched the situation. They could only grit their teeth and flee. As they fled, they glared fiercely at Earth Lord Tianyong, already viewing him as their enemy. If they met outside in the future, they would definitely fight him to the death. It wasn't that they were ungrateful or anything. It was just that they felt it was more important to survive. It was true that Tianyan had saved them, but they would only be a burden if they stayed here. There was no way they could fight against the guards. Lord Creation Heaven and Earth was hiding on the side, watching Tianyan's situation. At the same time, he was also paying attention to Earth Lord Tianyong's situation, in case he suffered another sneak attack from Earth Lord Tianyong. I didn't expect you to have a helper. Earth Lord Tianyong had regarded Tianyan as Lord Creation Heaven and Earth's companion, so he sneered. But it will be useless soon. With so many guards surrounding us, it's impossible for us to escape. Is that so? Even if I die, I will drag you down with me. Lord Creation Heaven and Earth sneered. Then you can go to hell now. Earth Lord Tianyong flew into a rage and thrust his sword towards Tianyan. Immediately, Lord Creation Heaven and Earth raised his hand and shouted, "Array rise." In the next moment, a ray of light suddenly lit up under Earth Lord Tianyong's feet, enveloping him and locking him in place. When did you draw this array here?" Earth Lord Tianyong looked at the array under his feet in disbelief. He didn't know when Lord Creation Heaven and Earth carved this array here. "You want to escape? How can you not be prepared?" Lord Creation Heaven and Earth picked up the long sword that fell to the side, and slashed at Earth Lord Tianyong. Earth Lord Tianyong's mouth was wide open, but before he could make a sound, his head had already fallen to the ground. Following that, his body exploded into a mist of blood. When Lord Creation Heaven and Earth made his move, he didn't hesitate at all, nor did he show any mercy. It was a fatal blow. Lord Creation Heaven and Earth was able to dominate the three realms, so how could he not be capable? When it was time to be ruthless, he would never show mercy. When Tianyan saw the situation over here, he smiled. As expected of an expert from the three realms, his ability was definitely not inferior to the experts from the divine realm. At the same time, the surrounding guards had already surrounded them, making it so that not even a drop of water could escape. There were a total of 5 guards, all of whom were at the 4th or 5th level of the Lord of Heaven level. They all rushed over from the side. "You actually killed the guards of Phylong City. Do you know where this place is?" One of the guards was shocked when he saw his companion being kicked into a meat patty. In the 3 divine realms, there was actually someone who dared to cause trouble in the territory of the Xuanwu Dragon sect. Wasn't this going against the Xuanwu Dragon sect? Isn't this the territory of the Xuanwu Dragon sect? It should be said that this is a place where a bunch of bandits snatch cultivators as they wish to do manual labor. Tianyan said indifferently, "I don't have a Buddha's heart. It's fine if you capture others, but if you dare to capture my people, then don't blame me for being impolite." He wasn't worried about the Xuanwu Dragon sect at all. He was barefooted, so why would he be afraid of these forces? As for being found out that he was from the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm, he wasn't worried either. He believed that the Xuanwu Dragon sect definitely wouldn't dare to offend the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm unless they wanted to die. How many divine monarchs could there be in a small Xuanwu Dragon sect? There were dozens of divine monarchs in the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm. If they sent a few elders over, the Xuanwu Dragon sect would be completely wiped out. Such arrogance. Even if he is a dragon, when he comes to our Xuanwu Dragon sect, he has to bow down. When the guard sensed that Tianyan only had the cultivation of an earth monarch, he was instantly filled with courage and wasn't worried at all. He didn't know why his comrade had been killed. It was very likely that he had been careless or had been ambushed. In his opinion, it was very likely that he had been ambushed. The most important thing was to investigate clearly which force the intruder was from. In the 3 divine realms, there were quite a few forces similar to the Xuanwu Dragon sect. Hence, it was possible that the intruder was sent by another force to cause trouble. Immediately, the guards surrounded Tianyan, wanting to capture him. Just as they were about to charge over, rays of light suddenly flashed at the side, sealing these guards inside. Upon closer inspection, it was actually an exquisite array formation. It was unknown when it had been set up here, but it could temporarily seal the movements of these guards. From the looks of it, it was unknown how long it had been set up. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to be used immediately. Chapter 1175. Friend, hurry up and leave. Lord Creation Heaven and Earth walked out and shouted hurriedly, "The imprisonment formation I've carved can't last for too long. At most, it can only last for a short while." When Tianyan saw Lord Creation Heaven and Earth walking out, he smiled slightly. He had already seen that there was a formation here. He guessed that it was set up by Lord Creation Heaven and Earth. Sure enough, it was released to catch him off guard. It was not easy to be enslaved here and set up a formation while the guards were patrolling. No wonder Lord Creation Heaven and Earth stayed here to control the formation and imprison the guards so that they could escape together. "No hurry, I'll get rid of them now." Tianyan leaped up and turned into a flash of lightning. The next moment, 5 clouds of blood mist exploded in the air. The guards didn't even have a chance to resist before they all exploded. Then, they turned into piles of experience points and rushed over. It was much faster than absorbing the water core. This power. Lord Creation Heaven and Earth sucked in a breath of cold air. He was stunned by Etienne's actions. Then he smiled bitterly and said, "It seems that I've done something unnecessary. Even without this formation, you can easily suppress them. I've only heard of an Earth Lord killing the Lord of Heaven, but I've never seen it." He felt that it was unnecessary for him to stay here. There was no need for him to help at all. They could easily kill everything in a second. Then his expression changed slightly and he said hurriedly, "Then let's leave quickly. If we're late, the Xuanwu Dragon sect will definitely not let us go. These guards are the weaker ones in the Xuanwu Dragon sect. They have stronger existences." But after saying this, he remembered Etienne's words and turned to look at him. "By the way, didn't you say that you're looking for a friend? Where's that friend of yours? I'm more familiar with this place. I can bring you to him. As long as it's in Filong City, I've seen them all. I can bring you to him immediately." Etienne smiled and said, "You're the person I'm looking for." "Looking for me?" Lord Creation Heaven and Earth was shocked. He pointed to himself and said, "I'm the person you're looking for? No way, I don't even know you. This is definitely the first time we've met." "This is naturally the first time we've met, but according to the ceremony, I can be considered half a disciple of yours." Etienne looked at the Heaven and Earth Creator. Even if the Heaven and Earth Creator came out, his character would not change. He would not be tortured into a villain by this cruel world. To be able to protect the experts of the three realms, to be able to sacrifice himself for others, his breadth of mind had not changed. "Half a disciple?" Lord of Creation Heaven and Earth laughed. He waved his hand and said, "How is this possible? Your cultivation is much stronger than mine. I'm just a second refinement Earth Monarch. Looking at your appearance, you are at least a 7th or 8th refinement Earth Monarch. Otherwise, how could you kill these guards so easily?" "Three realms," Etienne said softly. "The three realms." Lord Heaven and Earth Creator jumped up and looked at him in shock. You came from the three realms?" "Yes, I've come from the 3 dimensions. To be more precise, I've come to look for all of you, the guardian of the 3 realms." Etienne laughed. This. Lord of Creation Heaven and Earth Creator still felt that it was very unbelievable. How could he not know the situation of the 3 realms? How could there be such a heaven-defying existence? Etienne grabbed him, stepped on his feet, and flew out of the planet, easily escaping from this place. After breaking through to the 10th refinement Earth Monarch, he had the strength of the Lord of Heaven. His speed was even more amazing. Otherwise, he would not be able to kill them so easily. "Let's talk while we save the King of the Heavens. He can be considered as my ancestor." Etienne looked at the Lord of Creation Heaven's dumbfounded expression, and felt that it was very funny. The legendary figure of the past showed such an expression when he saw him. You are the descendant of the King of the Heavens. This is incredible." Lord of Creation Heaven and Earth Creator was shocked again. He really could not calm down. The impact of all this was too great for him. "What's the situation with you? After so long, don't you plan to go back to the 3 realms to have a look?" Etienne asked. "Of course, why don't we go back? Before coming to the 2nd grade divine realm, we plan to go back to the 3 realms to have a look. After all, we have not dealt with the evil spirit race. Who knew that when we went back, we would find that the 3 realms had disappeared? I thought that the 3 realms had been destroyed, so the 3 of us were very depressed." Lord of Creation Heaven and Earth Creator shook his head and looked at Etienne excitedly. "I wonder what's the situation in the 3 realms now. You must know. The 3 realms has been moved. If not, it would have been destroyed by the evil spirit race a long time ago." Etienne smiled. "So don't worry, the 3 realms is still fine. There are no problems. When I bring you back next time, many people in the 3 realms miss you very much. After all, you have contributed a lot to the 3 realms. Is that so?" Lord of Creation Heaven and Earth Creator seemed to remember the situation in the 3 realms, and said happily, "But the 3 realms is still here. It seems that you have solved the problem of the evil spirit race. We have been cultivating here for too long. We never thought that a year in the divine realm would have passed several years in the Fanyu. Staying in the divine realm for many years, it is difficult to move forward here. There are too few resources. Our talent is too low, so it is extremely difficult to improve. It was not easy for us to stand firm in the first grade divine realm, but the gap is still too big. Lord of creation, heaven and earth creator sighed deeply, feeling as if he had encountered a major setback. They stood at the peak in the Fanyu, but coming here they were nothing. How could they not feel frustrated? Tianyan nodded. He knew that this would be the reason. They were well aware that their cultivation was too low, so they had to properly cultivate in the divine realm. By the time they succeeded in their cultivation and prepared to return, 1,000 years would have passed in the mortal realm, or even 10,000 years. This was the terror of the mortal realm. No, you just lack resources. Tianyan patted Lord of Creation Heaven and Earth Creator's shoulder, and said in a deep voice, "Now let's go and save people and solve this matter first." Lord of Creation Heaven and Earth Creator said in a deep voice, "They have been captured and enslaved in different places. Lord of Creation Heaven and Earth Creator should have been captured to forge weapons. Lord of Creation Heaven and Earth Creator's forging skills are very good, otherwise, we would have been killed." Tianyan's eyes were cold. "Don't worry, I will make them pay the price." He felt restless in his heart. He had long wanted to start a massacre. If there was any accident, he would not mind killing them. Yes, we all have a grudge. As long as someone comes to invade us, we will fight them even if we have to sacrifice our lives. Lord of Creation Heaven and Earth Creator's eyes were filled with determination. He would never let any of the invaders go. Chapter 1176. Tianyan brought Lord creating heaven and earth to where Lord Feng Tianyan was. It wasn't far from here. In fact, it was another city called Churning City. Churning City was more mature and didn't need so many god inscribing masters to carve god seals on it. Instead, they needed to constantly forge weapons to strengthen the guards. However, since it was the territory of the Xuanwu dragon sect, the treatment wouldn't be much better than Lord creating heaven and earth. On the way, Tianyan and Lord creating heaven and earth chatted a lot about the current situation of the three realms and their encounters in the divine realm. When they came to the divine realm, they didn't stop thinking about the three realms. Therefore, they kept cultivating with all their might. They wanted to improve their cultivation so that they could return to the three realms to suppress the evil spirit race. In their opinion, they had to at least break through to the Earth Monarch level before they could go back to deal with the evil spirit race. Therefore, they all broke through to the Earth Monarch level here. The highest level was the second refinement Earth Monarch level. They were delayed on their way back. When they returned, they found that the three realms were gone. This made them very sad. They had calculated the time, but the time difference was too terrifying. When they returned, they found that thousands of years had passed. They thought that the evil spirit race destroyed it. They didn't expect it to be moved by Tianyan. Churning City is in front. The security here is stricter than Phylong City. There are more guards. It can be said to be an important stronghold of the Xuanwu dragon sect. There are many elders in there. Therefore, we have to be very careful when we sneak in. Before he finished his sentence, he rushed down, completely ignoring Lord creating heaven and earth's advice. What elders? What guards? They are all bullshit. Whoever dares to stop me, I will kill them. The most important thing was that he saw a shocking scene. It would be too late if he was any slower. At the same time, Lord Feng Tianyan was forging weapons below. There were cultivators in the same situation as him. They were all forging weapons. Fortunately, he had a furnace to supply him with. If he had to constantly release flames, he wouldn't be able to forge many weapons even if he burned himself to death. Even so, his condition wasn't good. There were injuries all over his body, and there were bloodstains that hadn't dried yet. This proved that he had been beaten many times. Why don't you try running again if you can? The guard at the side looked at Feng Tiandijun coldly. Then he looked at the other trembling cultivators and said coldly, If it weren't for the fact that you all still have some use, you would have been killed by us long ago. How could you have survived? You should feel honored to be able to work for our Xianlong dragon sect. I didn't expect you to choose to run away. I'll give you one last chance. If you still try to escape, I'll kill you without mercy. If you sincerely work for us, we will spare your lives. The Xuanwu dragon sect isn't so cruel and cold-blooded. The guard's words were truly laughable. Even if he wasn't a cold-blooded and cruel person, he was still an extremely domineering existence. Feng Tiandijun's eyes were filled with killing intent. He clenched his fists so tightly that blood was already dripping down his elbows and dripping onto the ground. His body trembled slightly, not because he couldn't stand steadily, but because he was too angry. He hated himself for not being strong enough, and hated the Xuanwu dragon sect for being so inhumane. Capturing people was worse than beasts, enslaving them all the time without giving them a chance to rest. Do you think I don't know the situation? Feng Tiandijun laughed coldly. After you're done using us, you will kill us without hesitation to prevent any future troubles. I've already eavesdropped on you. From the moment we were captured, we already had no chance of survival. Everyone, don't listen to these fellows' orders. Escape with me. If we continue to stay here, we will only turn into charcoal for the furnace. Feng Tiandijun turned his head and roared. He waved the furnace in front of him, turning it into a huge fireball and charging over. He wouldn't sit still and wait for death. He also knew what they were thinking in advance, which was why he kept choosing to escape. Be it now or before, he didn't give up on the chance to escape. Now he wanted everyone to escape with him. If he was alone, it was basically impossible for him to escape. Most importantly, this was a situation where they would definitely die. If they didn't escape, they would lose their value and die. Don't listen to his nonsense. The guard angrily slashed his sword and cut the furnace into two. He was shocked and furious. Our Xuanwu dragon sect isn't so cruel. Don't listen to his nonsense. As long as you sincerely work for the Xuanwu dragon sect, not only will you survive, but we will also give you benefits. These guards were shocked and furious. They didn't expect Feng Tiandijun to hear their words. This was unexpected. They didn't want the cultivators here to completely rebel. If that happened, they wouldn't be able to complete their mission. The cultivators who originally believed Feng Tiandijun's words calmed down a little when they heard the guard's words. They were a little hesitant. They didn't know what to choose. Were they really going to fight their way out? They are the ones who are talking nonsense. Rather than being tortured to death, why don't we fight our way out? At the very least, we will drag one of them down with us. Feng Tiandijun roared and threw the furnace out again. However, his cultivation was too low. Very quickly, the guard rushed over and slashed at him with his sword. A cold light flashed. Feng Tiandijun hurriedly dodged to the back, but he was still too slow. His body was immediately slashed by the sword. Then, with a puffed sound, a trail of blood spurted out and dyed a large area of the ground red. Feng Tiandijun staggered a few steps back and almost fell to the ground. The sword on his chest made him feel extreme pain. Just a little bit more and his body would have been chopped into two. It seems like the heavens want me dead. Feng Tiandijun looked at those cultivators and roared angrily. If you don't resist, you will regret it in the end. What made him feel the most miserable was that these people didn't do anything. It was fine if he died. At least he could awaken this group of people to resist, who knew that they wouldn't move at all. They were like logs rooted to the ground, watching him die tragically. Those who resist will die even faster. If you resist, you will be going against the Xuanwu dragon sect. The guard at the side hurriedly persuaded. Are you willing to listen to him or are you willing to obey us? It's your choice. They could suppress these cultivators, but if they resisted and killed all of them, it would be troublesome. This was like killing all the commoners, who would farm and build houses for the emperor. Could it be that those ministers would farm? These divine craftsmen were still very useful at the moment, so they naturally couldn't be killed. However, if all of them rushed over to resist, it would mean that if they didn't kill them, they would be killed. Chapter 1177. Nonsense, trying to sow dissension and inciting everyone to betray us. Looks like if I don't punish you, it will be hard to calm down. The guards closed in on Feng Tiandi Lord and surrounded him. There was no way for him to escape. Plus, he couldn't escape at all. The difference in cultivation level was too big, and he was injured. He was already injured, and now he was even more injured. He was at his limit. So dissension? Feng Tiandi Lord found it funny. It was your fault for capturing us, but you said it as if you were treating us well. I hate you. I hate myself for not being strong enough to be slaughtered by you. He looked up to the sky and shouted. He felt that it was not worth it. If he had more time, he would definitely be able to break through again. But he didn't have the chance, and he was about to die. It seems like you still have a bit of self-awareness. This is a world where the weak are prey to the strong. If your strength is too weak, then just obediently lie down and do whatever I tell you to do. The guard laughed loudly. Seeing Feng Tianjun's resigned expression, he felt that it was extremely funny. What he found funny was Feng Tiandi Lord's expression of despair. It made him feel very carefree. They liked to see this kind of expression of despair. It made them feel very refreshed. Only this way, they could make an example out of others and make them not dare to betray them. At least I am the master of my own life. Feng Tiandi Lord raised the sword in his hand and stabbed it towards his chest. He couldn't control his freedom now, but at least he could control his own life. Even if he were to die, he should die with dignity. The guard's expression changed. They wanted to rush over and stop him. They didn't want Feng Tiandi Lord to commit suicide. They had to torture him to make an example out of him. If Feng Tiandi Lord committed suicide, it wouldn't have the same effect. However, there was a figure that was even faster than them. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the long sword that was thrusting towards him. He firmly held onto the body of the sword and prevented Feng Tianjun from thrusting any further. The one who stopped him from committing suicide was naturally Yi Tianyan, who rushed down quickly. He grabbed the long sword and threw it to the side. You, who are you? You can't even commit suicide? Feng Tiandi Lord was in despair. His weapon had been stolen, and someone had intercepted him. How could he have the chance to kill himself? Don't worry. No one will kill you. They will. Yi Tianyan's eyes turned cold. He turned to the guards and said coldly, Is it the law of the jungle? I've been hearing these words for a long time. Since that's the case, I'll show you what it means by the law of the jungle. In the next moment, Yi Tianyan's figure flashed and he dashed forward. His speed was so fast that it only left an afterimage in front of everyone's eyes. Many of them were at the level of the Lord of Heaven, but none of them could see Yi Tianyan clearly. Bang bang bang. 3 guards were blown to smithereens with a single kick. With the help of the title and the sky-trembling divine art, he directly kicked them into a bloody mist, using violence to curb violence. If you want to see what is the law of the jungle, then this is it. Ding, successfully killed the guard, got 7 compression EXP, 2 compression crazy point, 1 compression value. Reincarnation sword, jade wheel armor, body protecting divine pill. Increases defense by 5 times, lasts for 1 hour. Ding successfully killed the guard, got 3 guards were easily killed, and a lot of EXP kept coming. Killing the Lord of Heaven gave a lot of EXP. In the blink of an eye, 3 guards were killed, and the rest of the guards were shocked. The intruder is obviously not one of their own, but the enemy's helper. Who are you? Do you know whose territory this is? How dare you be so presumptuous? They still have a little bit of confidence. At the same time, they crushed the jade pendant in their hands and quickly asked for support. Isn't it just the Xianlong dragon sect? Yi Tianyan said with a sneer. You think you can bully everyone just because you have a good faction? That's what you're talking about. So what? At this time, a Lord of Heaven slowly descended from the sky. His cultivation is at the 8th layer of the Lord of Heaven. Obviously an elder. He is much stronger than these guards. Elder. When the guard saw the Lord of Heaven descending, he immediately shouted in excitement, as if he saw his savior. Yi Tianyan turned his eyes and stared at him sharply. Just because of this Xianlong dragon sect? Yes, in the 3 heavens god realm, Xianlong dragon sect is the biggest. Lord of Heaven looked at him and said sternly, "You have committed a crime of death. You dare to break into the territory of Xianlong Dragon Sect and kill at will. No matter what background you have, even if you are a dragon, you will have to bow down to this old man." Lord of Heaven stretched out his hand, and the vast heavenly Tao power was displayed by him. The Lord of Heaven can use heavenly Tao power, the difference is the strength. Under his attack, the surroundings began to bloom with dazzling light. Obviously, he wants to use the power of the formation here to suppress Yi Tianyun's power. Feng Tiandiju's face changed and hurriedly shouted, "Friend, run. Don't worry about me, run. You are my ancestor. Do you think I will run?" Yi Tianyun smiled indifferently. While the other party was still in a daze, Yi Tianyun flew up lightly and stepped on the void. Boom. The power of the heavenly way condensed in the void was directly smashed into pieces by the stomp of his foot. PFFF, Lord of Heaven vomited blood as he fell from the sky. The power that he had condensed was easily crushed by Yi Tianyun, causing the power to backfire on him. "How dare you be so arrogant in front of me with this trashy heavenly Tao power?" The terrifying heavenly Tao power flashed behind Yi Tianyun, and the vague power seemed to be above all the heavenly Tao power. My heavenly Tao power, why can't I use it?" Lord of Heaven's face was filled with fear, and his heart sank to the bottom as he felt extreme fear. In the next moment, Yi Tianyun was already in front of him. Step by step, Yi Tianyun walked in front of him and sneered, "Because you are too weak." As soon as he finished speaking, he stepped on the Lord of Heaven's body with a violent and absolute power. At this time, Lord of Heaven could clearly see the 10 chains that emerged from Yi Tianyun's back, and they were above all the heavenly Tao. 10 refining Earth Lord? Lord of Heaven's voice was hoarse, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He could not imagine the existence of a 10 refining Earth Lord. Bang! Yi Tianyun stepped on him and turned him into a mist of blood, and he could not be more dead. The other cultivators did not see this scene at all. Only those who were watching from a close distance could see the shadow of the 10 chains. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.